911. Where's your emergency?
This is Alex Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child got badly.
Good morning, friends. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm Franky, and this is the Think Tank. So I know I wasn't really planning on doing many lives on the trial, but I just couldn't help myself this morning with the defense taking their turn at everything. I thought, oh my goodness, it could be fireworks today. So that's one thing I wanted to check. Is that any better, Dandy? Thanks for the heads up, Dandy. They really are totally majestic. So I wonder what we're going to get today. Do you think we're going to get a show? Do you think that the defense is going to put on a show for us? I'm just checking. I'll keep a watch. They should be popping in very soon. Wow. Look at the water as the sun's coming up. It's just beautiful. Okay, just muted. So if court starts up, I can hear them. So what do you think? Are we going to get fireworks? Do you think Cousin Eddie will make an appearance? Do you think Alec will be the type to get on the stand? Being he's a lawyer, you would think he would know better, but sometimes ego takes over, right? That's what I'm thinking too, Dandy. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yes. I'm still going to try and do, like I said, I want to do Nicola Boulay and see if there's anything out on Koberger. And if I can get anything else, I will do a live later today on that. It's funny how a person gets used to certain stations that a person will follow. Oh, beautiful sunrise. Oh, my word. So do you think it's going to be as long as the prosecution? Do you think the defense will go on as long? Some people are saying maybe a week, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that'll go. They don't have as many witnesses. Remember when we first got that witness list in for this case, there was literally 250 people that were supposed to be going to the stand, and we didn't get 250. The defense has got a much smaller list, and I'm not sure if they will be bringing all of those people up or if they will also cut back. It would have been one hell of a long trial if they had brought out all of those different witnesses. If the prosecution had, it would have been a very, very long trial. Come on, let's go. Right? agree, Dandy. No, I thought they were coming in, but I was wrong. This case has sure grabbed attention, has it not? It's because of all the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Like it seems to be never-ending drama. And Murdaugh, I don't know, he seems to have become an expert in the world of untruths. Let's see here. Not yet, not yet. So I did notice the first couple people that were up on the stand on Friday, we got 2 from the defense, right? And neither one of them were on the witness list. Okay, we'll go over here.
Good morning. I have 2 issues. I don't know if you all have something. First, we have a juror who's not feeling well and who is at a doctor's appointment. Juror number 441. The juror is not here.
I don't know what's going on there. I don't think that's my volume.
Not feeling well. They have doctor's appointment. I haven't spoken with the juror. This note came from someone. Did it come from the clerk's office? From the jury coordinator?
Sorry, I don't have to pull out documents we haven't really looked at in 4 weeks.
Can you have the juror coordinator come up?
Uh-oh. That's no bueno. Right? Mm-mm. I don't know, with this freaking COVID going around.
Juror coordinator.
No bueno.
Sherry. Okay.
No objection to replacing her.
Oh.
These are 2 old.
Your Honor, that's fine with proceeding if that's the court's desire to proceed on. Certainly, I don't have any objection either.
Proceeding as opposed to what?
I mean, if she's at the doctor's appointment. I don't know if that was something that would keep her out for a while. That would be the only thing. But obviously, she's not here and not feeling well, so that's why we have the alternates.
And Your Honor, and I know you were going to tell the jury, day 21, and we'd like to not be doing day 31. And if this delays it, we sit here and wait to find out but her health condition is, it might go on for a while. So we'd rather go ahead and proceed.
Madam Jury Coordinator, what,
Your Honor, can I make a statement right quick?
Yes, sir.
We think the defense will be rested, we will rest our case by Friday.
Whoa.
Late day Friday. And then, I don't know if the state has any reply, but we're looking at finishing early next week. I don't know if it makes sense to notify the jury of this anticipated schedule, and that creates, that we know we're going to lose some people if they're aware right now that we may be finishing early next week and we'll be coming up short. I just don't want to come up short.
So that will do alternates after
Of course,
this.
that's all predicated on cross-examination and reply.
Sherry, did you receive a call from a juror or some communication from the juror? Tell us about it.
Oh,
Yeah. Stand and tell us about it. All right. So
oh,
it's same as the other juror who ended up in the emergency room, and we replaced that juror. So
uh-oh. Too sick?
so we now have, we'll need to select by lot the next juror. Out of the three, we need another juror. Any objection to the clerk randomly pulling out the number out of the box?
None from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
See who we have. Tell us who it is, juror number.
Juror number 530.
You know who that is.
I didn't realize that that damn COVID was still hanging around that much in some of these areas.
All right, juror number 530 will become part of the regular panel.
The family's all scattered around the courthouse now.
Secondly, I've been receiving over the past 2 to 3 days emails concerning a social media post by Mr. Griffin commenting upon witnesses' testimony and
Oh,
quality of the investigation by the state.
oh,
And it appeared on my Twitter feed this morning. Mr. Griffin, is this part of your defense strategy or?
oh, you dirty bugger.
Your Honor, all I did was retweet an article that was published in the Washington Post. I didn't put any comment. I didn't make any statement. I just retweeted the article that's in the newspaper. That's all I did.
Not cool.
We had an NBA player who retweeted an article, professional basketball player who retweeted an article that resulted in him being suspended from the NBA for about 10 days and
Yeah, say bye-bye, Griffin.
cost him about $10 million
Griffin.
in salary. So retweeting is the same as, to some, as if your tweet.
Yep,
It appeared,
your words.
I didn't know that, well, I mean, I'm not a Twitter friend of yours. It just appeared on my, under Twitter. First thing up this morning was you.
Oh, my God.
We had the lawyer who had a similar name to, a person with a similar name to our lawyer witness, and it was someone else by the same name. In your interest, your instance, it's your name and your picture. So
Let him go.
Retweet the article.
No.
question about it.
Let him go.
yeah, well, I've been reviewing Rule 3.6 regarding that, and whereas the rule does not specifically state that lawyers are prohibited from criticizing witnesses during the course of the trial or commenting on a case that they're actively participating in. I think it goes against the spirit of the law,
Yes,
of the rule, and it doesn't pass the field test.
No.
So that's,
but bye, buddy.
to quote Judge Keinerd, it didn't pass the field test. So you should not post or repost anything that would give me or the general public or hopefully never land in the hand of a juror who, the jurors were instructed not to discuss the case, and obviously that did not extend to the lawyers, but it's not a good practice, and
Not at all.
it could easily lead to modification of our rules that might specifically address something like that. So I'll leave it at that.
And Your Honor, I will not retweet anything or tweet anything until this trial is over.
Yes, sir.
Oh, no.
Anything else before the jury comes?
I'd just let him go.
Nothing from state, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense, Your Honor.
Okay, you may bring the jury.
I don't think he should have been able to stay. Like, could that not possibly be grounds to, oh my word, to appeal this case? I think he messed up. We are getting so much snow here. I don't know what Jasmine thinks she's seeing out there. Bunnies? She's on high alert. What was that man thinking? No, exactly what I was just thinking, Dandy. Common sense is apparently not all common these days. It's really doesn't seem to be. What lawyer? Like, isn't he supposed to be like a bigwig? What would ever make him think that it would be okay to start tweeting stuff about the case or retweeting even? Because anyone who's on Twitter knows
Good morning.
that basically shows one's
Day
feelings.
number 21.
I'm muting out.
Now the defense's case. As you all might know, one juror is missing, absent, and that juror has to be replaced, and that juror is being replaced by juror number 530. Juror number 530, nod. 530. All right, juror number 530, you're one of the first 12 now. Participating member of the regular jury panel. And we'll press on with our case, and hopefully we'll not have much more attrition, but it's understandable the longer this case goes. We'll proceed now with the defense's case.
Thank you, Your Honor. Defense will call Richard Alexander Murdaugh Jr., also known as Buster Murdaugh.
Oh my God, it's Buster. Oh my God.
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth?
Oh
and
my
nothing but the
God.
truth, so help you God? Thank you.
I
You'll have a seat up on the witness stand.
knew he was on the list, but I didn't think it would happen.
Adjust your chair and your microphone. And if you'll state your full name and spell your last name.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh Jr., Murdaugh. I go by Buster.
Mr. Murdaugh, is your father sitting over here at defense table?
Yes, sir.
tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where you're born, where you're raised, where'd you go to school?
Right. So my name is Buster, 26 years old. I live in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I was born in Savannah and lived in Beaufort for about 2 years. When I was a little child, we moved to Hampton in about 2000, and I grew up in Hampton, went to Wade Hampton High School. And after high school, I went to a small college in Spartanburg called Wofford.
Did your mother Maggie
Yes, sir.
and your brother Paul?
Yes, sir.
The when you moved to Hampton, do you remember how old you were when you first moved to Hampton?
Three or four.
Okay. And did you live in Hampton, in a house in the city limits,
Yes,
the
sir.
town limits?
Yes, sir.
And you did that with your mom and dad and brother for how long?
For around 20 years.
Right. What schools did you go to coming up through in Hampton County? What you go to grade school?
Went to Ben Hazel Primary School, Hampton Elementary School, North District Middle School, Wade Hampton High School.
And as you were growing up, what were your interests, Buster?
Sports, playing sports, doing things outdoors, hunting, fishing.
And was your father involved in those interests with you?
Yes, sir.
And was your mother also?
Yes, yes, sir.
And in what way?
Well, my father coached every little league team I played on up until I started playing for the schools in which had a coach.
And what about Paul? What were his interests growing up?
Paul's interests were outdoors mostly, hunting, fishing, playing around in the woods.
Right. Did he also play sports at times?
He did. Yeah, he played basketball and baseball.
Did your dad coach him as well?
He did.
And would your parents attend all of your and Paul's sporting events as you're growing up?
Every game. And it was a rarity for them to miss one. And then if they had to, they would call and explain. And
Right. And at some point in time, did your parents buy this property off Moselle Road?
yes, sir.
Do you remember roughly when that was?
Right around 2012, I think. I would have been a sophomore in high school.
And when that property was first purchased, did you move out to Moselle or are you still living in Hampton?
So we had a house in Hampton and also purchased the property in Moselle, which had a house. And for the beginning stages of owning Moselle, Hampton was still working as our primary residence. But I believe it was Hurricane Matthew, or one of the hurricanes came through and blew a bunch of pine trees over on the house. So it had to get work done to it. And from that point, we moved out from Hampton to Moselle while the house was getting fixed. And more or less, it just it never transitioned back to Hampton. It just almost like Moselle became the primary residence.
And during this time, did your family also have a house at Eddystone?
Yes, sir.
How frequently would you stay at the house at Eddystone?
Very frequently during the summertime, almost every weekend.
And when your family essentially relocated to the Moselle property and making it primary residence, were you still living at home in high school, or do you remember how old you were at that point in time?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. Will you say that again?
Were you living at home at that point in time? Was that while you were still in high school or
Yes.
school? You remember when you transitioned to Moselle and started staying there basically full time during the school year?
So when I was still in high school, we were living in the Hampton house, and then I'd gone off to college,
Okay.
which is when the stuff happened, and they moved out to Moselle. So I was living at college.
And when did you go off to college?
2014.
Okay. So sometime after around 2014, family relocated to Moselle for the most part
That's right.
because of the hurricane damage. Is
Yes,
that-
sir.
Tell the jury a little bit about the Moselle property. I know they've heard a fair amount, but I think you probably know it better than anybody.
Yeah, so the Moselle property it's roughly 1,700 acres. And a lot of that is really not even accessible. It's a lot of swamplands, a lot of stuff that you just, no road systems or anything like that. But a big portion of it is has road systems and everything. And it's a big property. It's broken up into several different parcels that border each other. And, we have 20 some odd deer stands, dove fields, duck ponds, just all over the property. So
What type of hunting did you and your brother and your father do at Moselle?
everything, deer, duck, quail, dove, hogs.
You have a duck pond?
We have a duck pond.
Okay. And the hunting was, did you have a lot of friends come out and hunt as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the jury has seen a aerial view of the property, and there's a main house, there's shed, kennels, and then there's a house sort of right on Moselle Road. What do you call that house?
That's the cabin.
The cabin. And did you live in the cabin with friends over summers at some point in time?
I did. The summer of my sophomore year, after my sophomore year, me and two of my buddies lived in the cabin.
Okay. And who are those buddies?
Nolan Tootin and Rogan Gibson.
Okay. And so we're getting more of this. We've heard about hogs and pigs on the property. Can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
About the hogs?
Yes, sir.
We had a lot of hogs, and if you don't know, hogs are very destructive to a piece of property. We plant food plots for the deer, plant the fields for the doves and the ducks, and they basically go through and ruin it all. So given the high population of hogs, we, would frequently go out and hunt them, try to cut the numbers down a little bit.
Did what kind of guns did you have there at Moselle?
We had a lot of guns.
Do you have shotguns?
We did shotguns,
You have 12 gauge shotguns?
12 gauge shotguns, 20 gauge shotguns, 16 gauge shotguns, 28 gauge shotguns,
Right. And how many type rifles did you have on the property?
a lot.
Can you just name some of them?
Yeah, 270 short mag, 7mm 08, 308, 243, 223, 300 blackout.
And what type of ammo did you keep on the property?
Well, I mean, all ammos for those calibers.
Sure. And where were the guns kept primarily?
In the gun room at the main house at Moselle.
And was there a pool table in the gun room?
There was.
Okay. Were there times when guns were left elsewhere on the property?
Yes.
Where else on the property would guns be left?
Well, just myself. I mean, I've left them up at the shed before. I've left them on golf cart used that day, left them in a truck. I mean, guns would just not always find their way back to the gun room.
How about Paul? How was he with securing guns?
Not good.
What do you mean by that?
He would, Paul left guns probably more on the property than anybody else. And sometimes sometimes he would use my gun and then he would leave it and then I'd have to track it down.
Right. Did Paul carry guns in his truck?
He did.
Would he keep his truck locked up?
No, not all the time.
Did at some point in time you and Paul receive 300 blackouts for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
You remember roughly, was that 2016 or 2017?
Sounds right.
Okay. And what color was your 300 blackout?
It was black.
And have you been sitting in this courtroom during the entire trial?
Yes, sir.
And the jury's seen a black 300 blackout. Is that yours?
It is. That is my 300 blackout.
Was that the one you got for Christmas?
Yes, sir.
And what color was Paul's?
Paul's was black and tan.
And we say black and tan. What part was tan and what part was black?
So the receiver would have been tan, and and barrel would have been tan.
What part would have been black?
Stock maybe.
Okay. And so yours was all black, his was black and tan.
That's right.
What happened to his that he got for Christmas in 2016? Or
His gun was apparently stolen, lost, taken. Yeah,
how do you know that?
that's just what Paul told me.
What happened to your gun after Paul's was stolen?
My gun became, what we would both use.
And did that create some confrontation between you two at times?
Yes, sir.
And why?
Well, kind of like I just touched on. So he would use it. He's not very good about putting it back where he found it. I leave it somewhere. I go back and, want to get it, and it's not there.
Did you notice, were you aware that Paul got a replacement at some point in time?
No, sir.
Well, you heard about that in the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
Trial. Okay. But up to that point, did you ever see Paul use the replacement?
No, sir. I've never seen a replacement.
So every time in your presence, Paul was using 300 blackout, which one would it be?
Mine.
There's, I'm not going to pull these guns out, Buster, but there's been just discussion, and the jury is seeing a 12 gauge Benelli with a Mojo sticker on it. Whose gun is that?
That's mine.
And what's Mojo?
Mojo is a brand of decoy. It's basically what it is it's, say you buy a wood duck Mojo and it sits on a pole, but the wings are motorized. So it's to replicate, a more alive duck.
And why's your Benelli have a Mojo sticker on it?
Because I bought a Mojo decoy, and in the box it came with a sticker, and I put the sticker on the gun barrel.
And so that way that's your gun.
That's right.
I believe the evidence in the case is that Mojo Benelli, when it was seized, was loaded. Did you frequently put the gun away loaded?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Knowing that I might need it again at any point,
Okay.
just, put it back on the shelf. I kept the safety on.
Okay. And I think it was loaded with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch turkey load. Do you remember that you would load that gun with a 3-inch and a 3.5-inch?
Yes, sir.
And why would you do that?
I do that because when I go turkey hunting, the goal is to, get the turkey close to you and shoot it in the first try. But if I were to miss and the turkey goes running away and I try to shoot it again, I put a bigger shell, larger shell behind the smaller one for that purpose.
Okay. And that's something you commonly did?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever load in a 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge, a buckshot followed by a bird shot?
No, sir. I've never done that.
Have you ever known anybody to do that?
No, sir.
Do you know of any reason to do that?
No, I can't think of any reason to do that.
And specifically, have you ever loaded in any gun a buckshot followed by dry lock, steel, waterfowl pellet?
I have not.
You know anybody to do that?
No, sir.
You know any reason to do that?
No, sir.
Okay. And you ever seen any guns on your property loaded in that fashion?
No, sir.
Buckshot with some sort of bird shot right behind it?
No, sir.
The jury's heard testimony about goings and comings, which way you go in and go out at Moselle. How many entrances were there at Moselle?
2 entrances.
And will you describe the 2 entrances?
So the main entrance is pretty much straight out of the front door of the house, dirt road, and then you would come up on big brick columns And that's what I refer to as the main entrance. But down by the kennels is another entrance. And that one is a little bit different. That one has the mailbox beside it. And those are the two entrances.
Okay. So let's talk about coming onto the property. Which entrance coming onto the property would your mother normally take?
I would say normally everybody took the main entrance unless that there was a reason that you needed to go down the other one, which for her reasons of going down the other one would be the mailbox. And also when we got packages delivered from Amazon, they actually would go to the shed as opposed to the house.
So your deliveries would go not to the yellow or whatever white house that you lived in, but down at the shed.
That's right.
Okay. Now, leaving Moselle, the property, which way would you, Alex, your mom, Paul normally go leaving Moselle?
Out of the main gate.
Okay. And if you're going to Alameda, which way do you turn coming out of the main gate?
To the right.
The in 2020, 2021, during the summer months, where did your mother prefer to stay?
At Edisto.
And where were you staying, say, in the spring, summer of 2021? Where were you living?
Spring, Moselle.
And then summer, where'd you move to? Or,
I was down at Edisto a lot in the summer.
okay. And then, and where was Paul living in the, say, spring of 2021?
Spring of 20 or 21?
21. Now, maybe I said the wrong thing. In the spring of 2021, where were you living?
Spring of 2021.
Did you have an apartment in Columbia?
Yes, I did have an apartment in
You
Columbia.
split time between Columbia and Moselle,
Yes, sir.
and you have a girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then in the summer of 2021, well, in June, where were you living?
Between Columbia and between Rock Hill.
Okay. And who lived in Rock Hill?
My girlfriend's mom.
And then in the spring up through June of 2021, where was Paul living?
In Columbia.
He had an apartment in Columbia.
Yes, sir.
And was he enrolled at University of South Carolina in the spring of 2021?
Yes, sir.
And then once school got out, you know where Paul relocated to? Anywhere?
No, not exactly. I know that. I think he went down to live with John Marvin. He was working for him for the summertime.
And who's John Marvin?
My uncle.
And what kind of business does John Marvin have?
He has a rental business and he sells Kubota tractors.
And where does he have store locations?
One in Okatee, one in Hampton.
And was Paul working at the Ogatee location?
Yes.
Just sort of backing up, did you and your dad and mother and brother Paul do a lot of things with your mother's family, the Brandstetters?
Yes, sir.
What type of things would y'all do?
Well, we gather every holiday, and other than that, we would do trips together. We would go down to Key West, go over to my Aunt Mary and Uncle Bart's lake house, river house, just
Right.
stuff like that. Take trips, family trips.
And I'm just going to pull up on the screen, Doug, Defendant's Exhibit 122, which is in evidence, Your Honor. And Buster, take a look on the screen, and I believe your Aunt Marion testified about this. Can you tell the jury what this photo is?
This is a photo of me and my brother and my mom and my dad.
And was this taken in, I think, May 21? You were up for a baby shower, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And where was this?
So this is this is at Lake Kiwi in a community called the Reserve.
Okay. And y'all are visiting with whom?
With my aunt and uncle, Aunt Marion, Uncle Bart,
And for what purpose?
for my oldest cousin's baby shower.
All right. And was events like this unusual or
No,
fairly
sir.
frequent?
They're common.
And was your father close with Maggie's dad, your grandfather, Papa T, as it's been heard in this, it's been known in this courtroom?
Yes, sir, he was.
What kind of things would they do together?
They would do a lot together. For a long time, there was my grandfather had a camping trip, and Papa T frequented the camping trip. He liked that. Dad and Papa T would go to Carolina sporting events together, play golf together.
And did you spend a lot of time with your dad and your grandfather, Papa T?
Yes, sir.
You play golf with him?
Yes, sir.
We'll get to that in a little bit. And let's talk about your dad's side of the family. Was it a close knit family?
Yes, sir.
And your grandfather, your dad's father, his name was what?
Handsome.
Handsome. And that was a nickname, I think.
Yes, sir. It's what grandchildren called him.
Everybody-
Well, it started as grandchildren calling him, and then all of our friends started calling him that.
But that was Randolph Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
And then your grandmother's name, Libby.
Yes, sir.
And they live close by, is that correct?
That's right.
Where do they live?
Alameda.
And in relation to, I guess, Hampton, where's Alameda?
So straight down 278, like you're going to Yemisi.
Okay. And how far away is it from, say, the law office of PMPED to your grandparents' house?
Right.
Roughly how far is that?
10 minutes.
And how far of a drive would it have been from your house in Hampton?
I mean, roughly the same.
Right. And you know roughly how far of a drive would have been from the house in Moselle?
Probably more like 20.
And
25 maybe.
And did you and your mom and your dad and your brother Paul spend a lot of time with the Murdaugh side of the family?
Yes, sir.
And what would y'all do together?
Similar stuff, obviously gathering during the holidays, various things like that. We would take trips with that side of the family as well. You know, get out everybody, rent a big house, you know, meet up on the water on the weekends, just a lot of stuff going on with that side of the family as well.
And so I guess let's go back and, well, let's identify on your dad's side of the family. Did your dad have brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir.
Who are they?
John Marvin, Randy, and Lynn.
Okay. And then John Marvin, Randy, and Lynn had children, did they?
Yes, sir.
So he had a lot of cousins,
Yes, sir.
and families would get together, those cousins and aunts and uncles.
That's right.
Okay. And was there property down on Chichessie that y'all would spend time at?
Yes, sir. That was the family river house, Chichessie.
And where is that located?
So it's located in Okatee, Waters Avenue, off the Chichessie River.
Right.
It's pretty desolate.
The in the spring, well, in May and June of 2021, what was your grandfather Handsome's health condition as you knew it?
Not good. He wasn't in good health.
What do you understand his health problems to be?
I understand he had cancer, and I understood that, you know, he was having a pretty big battle with it.
And what was your grandmother? What'd you call your grandmother?
M.
M.
Yes, sir.
What health issues did she have in May and June of 2021?
She has Alzheimer's.
And would your dad frequently check on Handsome and M?
Yes, sir.
Would
He
you go with your dad to check on Handsome and M?
I would occasionally go with them too. Yes, sir.
Okay. And what times of day would you go with your dad to check on your grandparents?
It could have been any time. Went over at lunch a lot of times. Went over in the evenings a lot. Just no real set schedule. Just kind of mosey on over there.
When would your mother go with your dad?
She would, not regularly, but she went.
Would Paul stop in and check on your
Yeah,
grandparents?
yes, sir.
Was that fairly regularly for something Paul to do?
Yeah, Paul would do it regularly as well.
When you would go with your dad in the evenings, and maybe it's not limited to the evenings, where would you park when you go visit your grandparents?
For the most part, just like a ordinary afternoon visit, parking, the garage, the carport. But if we went over a little bit later, then we would pull around to the back side of the house and be able to enter through the back door.
Okay. And what's at the back side of the house?
So when you walk in the back side, it's like we call it a sunroom, but it's, a dining table. It's got a TV in there. And then that is right next to the kitchen. And then if you're in the kitchen and you go to the right, then that's where my grandparents' room is.
Doug, if you could pull up page 38 from State's Exhibit 524, please. That's in evidence. I believe it is. Page 38. Yes. And that's page 38. So Buster, this is from State's Exhibit 524, which is evidence, which is the GPS data off the OnStar provided from General Motors. And can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what's that house?
So that's my grandparents' house at Alameda.
All right. And these dots in the back, and I'm going to point to this line of dots just right next to the circle that Doug drew. Do you see them? Where they seem to be connected right here on the far right?
Yes, sir.
Where is that on the property?
So that's right off the back corner of the house.
Is that a place where you'd normally park to go in the back of the house?
Yes, sir. That is where
Have you parked there yourself?
I have.
Have you seen other family members park there?
I have.
Is that a customary place to park when you go in the back door where the kitchen sunroom is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to show you some photos, which are exhibits 130 to 136. And I'll ask you if you can just identify them. Don't show them to the jury, but just tell us what those photographs are of.
So these photos are of the area we're talking about, off the back corner of the house at Alameda.
All right. Your Honor, this time I move defendant's exhibits 130 through 136 in evidence.
Okay.
Thank you. So Doug, please pull up exhibit 133. And Buster, tell us what 133 is, please.
Yeah, so this is the back door entrance to where I was just talking about, to enter into the sunroom kitchen, into the kind of back quarters where my grandparents' bedrooms were.
All right, and if you'll pull up 134, Doug, please. And what's 134?
Same thing, same backside of the property, just a little bit of a different angle.
So the part of the house to the right of the photo, what's that? Can you see here?
Yeah, so that right there would be my grandparents' bedroom.
Okay, so that's in the evening, your grandparents would be in that part of the house, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And if you went to the garage entrance, what would happen? What would be required of your grandparents or some sitter to let you in?
Yeah, so you could go and knock, but a lot of times they're in the back part of the house and they don't hear you. So you normally call and say like, "Hey, I'm at the front. I need to be, let in." And they'd have to walk from the back to the front, unlock the door, and let you in.
But if you're in the back, how far is the walk?
Quarter of the distance it would be to walk it's very short.
And was it common to go in the back door?
Yes, sir.
And is it? And then I'm going to show you exhibit 131. Please pull that up, Doug. So, Your Honor, can you step down off the stand and point to the jury where? So Buster, step aside so that the jury you're not blocking their view. I don't have a pointer, but can you point out in this photo where you would normally park? All right, yeah, point out to the jury where you normally park to go into the.
So you would park, right about here, coming right off basically the corner of the house, and this is the same stairway to go up to the back door.
So you'd park in the grass.
Yes, sir.
And near that satellite dish, or not near the satellite dish?
Yeah.
Objection.
Where would you park in
Leading.
relation to the satellite dish?
Yeah, right there close to it.
All right. And that was. Now, hang on, Buster. I'm sorry. Come back. What's this structure right here?
That's what we call the cook shed.
And what's in the cook shed?
A couple couches, big TVs. That's mostly where my grandfather used to have a cookout on every third Thursday of a month, and that's where he would have his little gathering. It's just an open concept in there with a kitchen, TV, couple couches.
All right. Hang on, Doug. You pull up 132 while Buster's still standing here. Buster, what's this structure to the right of as you're looking at the cookhouse?
That's old shed.
Okay. Now, roughly, what's the distance between the cookhouse and the cook shed to where you'd normally park to go in the back door?
10, 20 yards, maybe.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and take your seat, please. Buster, how often would you speak with your mom and dad on the telephone on a daily basis?
Pretty much every day.
Right. And would you be with your dad when he's talking to your mother?
Yes, sir.
I guess Can you give the jury some sense of how frequently, as a family, y'all would engage in telephone conversations daily?
Yeah, it was very frequent. I mean, I spoke to my mom every day, multiple times a day, and the like for my dad and for my brother too. And that's just me. And I know it's like they're all talking to each other too. Just a lot of conversating throughout the day over the telephones within the family.
Okay. So Doug, I want to pull up State's Exhibit 520, which is in evidence, and this is the Rudowski extended or extensive timeline, not the condensed version. State's 520, and if you'll go to page 14, please. So Buster, what I like to do, and this starts at just at 1:11:10 p.m. If you could blow up that first entry, Doug, and this is in evidence offered by the state. And I just want to go through some of these again. So at 1:10, this document says Paul Murdaugh misses a phone call from Margaret Murdaugh. And then at 1:11:36, it says Maggie makes an outgoing phone call to Buster, answered 1 minute and 22 seconds long. Do you have any independent recollection of this particular phone call?
No, sir.
Okay. But if you keep working your way down, at 1:19, Doug, there's another entry. It says Paul Murdaugh makes an outgoing phone call to Mom. Do you see that? At 1:19.
Yes, sir.
And then if we'll go down to, well, so I guess let's just stop there. Is it frequent that your mother would reach out to you and Paul during the day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you'll go down to 1:41, please, Doug, at 1:41, 33 seconds. And you see Maggie makes an outgoing phone call to Buster. Do you see that? At 1:42, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
And then right before that, at 1:41, it looks like Maggie makes an outgoing phone call to Alex, not answered. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And then if you go right below that, it says 1:42:43, Maggie makes an outgoing phone call to Paul. Now, you see that?
Yes, sir.
Well, anything unusual going on this day, or is this sort of how life was in the Murdaugh family?
No, this was normal. This was the way we communicated.
Okay. And then if you'll go to page 15, Doug, at the bottom at entry 1:52:39 p.m. says Maggie Murdaugh makes outgoing phone call to Buster, answered at 1:19. So here's another call from your mother. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Not unusual, was it?
Not unusual.
All right. Then page 16 at 1:55:40. If you'll take a look, blow that up, Doug. Says Maggie Murdaugh received an incoming phone call from PA Alec Murdaugh. Answered 6 minutes and 18 seconds. And that was your dad and mom apparently talking, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then right below that at 1:56:18, there's some instant messages to you about some medication. Do you remember what this might be about?
Yeah. So this was about, I take a medication called Dupixent, which is a self-given shot. And I was up in Rock Hill and I needed to get the medicine delivered to this address here on the screen.
Okay.
And that's what we were talking about. She was, calling the pharmacy to get it redirected to that address.
Normal day. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Doug, if you go to page 19 at 3:24:20 p.m. Excuse me, I'm sorry. 3:24:35. Alex Murdaugh received an incoming phone call from Buster. 518 seconds. Sitting here today, do you remember what the phone call was about?
No, sir. I don't know specifically what it's about.
But just normal
Yeah, just,
day in the life of Buster Murdaugh,
that's right.
talking to his parents.
Yes, sir.
If you go to page 24, Doug. At 4:42:56 p.m. See, that looks like at 4:42, your mother's calling you again, right?
Yes, sir.
Anything unusual going on?
No, sir.
And then if you'll go to page 26, Doug, at 5:16:25 p.m. And there's an entry that says Alec Murdaugh calls Buster Murdaugh. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Looks like a 6-second call. Do you remember what that might be about?
No, 6 seconds could be a butt dial. That would happen often.
All right, and then if you go down the bottom of the page at 5:21:11, looks like there's a 92-second call, which is about 5 minutes after what might have been the butt dial. It says Alex Murdaugh receives a call. Buster answered 92 seconds long. You see that?
Yes, sir.
So are you returning your dad's call, you think?
Probably.
And I'll just carry through. If we'll, Doug, if you'll go to page 32 at 6:52:13 p.m., please. Pull it up. Thank you. So this entry says Alec Murdaugh calls Terry Brandstetter, 412 seconds. Who's Terry Brandstetter?
Papa T.
And would your dad call your grandfather fairly regularly?
Yes, sir. He would.
So again, anything unusual going on the 7th for y'all to have all these communications?
No, sir.
And then if we'll jump to page 49, Doug. And if you go to 9:08:58. And it says, Alec Murdaugh, iMessages Maggie Murdaugh stating, quote, going to check on M, be right back, close quote. Now, who's M?
My grandma.
And this is at 9:08:58. And then at 9:10:47, there's an entry that says, Alec Murdaugh calls Buster. And it says 60 seconds long. And that's at 9:10:47 p.m. on June 7th. Do you remember getting that phone call?
Yes, sir.
What did you talk about? What did you talk about?
Basis for the objection.
Reacting to hearsay.
Pardon?
I don't want to open the door to anything else. I was reacting to hearsay.
I asked what the topic was, Your Honor.
Objection's overruled.
Yeah, don't say what your dad said. Just tell me what y'all talked about.
Yeah, well, we just talked about like, hey, how you doing? And then he said that he was going out to.
What? Hang on. Okay. I mean, I thought he didn't want to hear hearsay, but I'm sorry, Your Honor. Go ahead.
And he was just letting me know that he was going out to Alameda to check on them.
Okay. And was this a unusual conversation you had with him?
No, sir.
What was his demeanor in the conversation?
Normal.
Had it changed from any of the other times you talked to him earlier in the day on the 7th?
No, sir.
And would he on occasion call you when he was going to check on his mother, M?
He would. Yes, sir.
Was that an unusual occurrence?
No, probably one of the more regular occurrences. We all usually would make phone calls like riding in a car. So when he was riding over, very common for him to call.
You can take that down, Doug. So just going through this extraction from, say, 1 o'clock until what we just talked about, 9 o'clock. There are multiple phone calls within the family. Tell the jury about the cell phone coverage at Moselle.
Not great cell phone coverage. Didn't have a lot of service, especially around. So if you were underneath the shed, at the shed, it had a metal roof. It just couldn't get any service inside of it. It was spotty around the whole property, and it had honestly gotten bad up at the house. We had just put on a new roof. Roof was metal, and just kind of hindered a lot of the phone coverage out there.
Would it be unusual for your dad to leave his phone at the house when he was going down to the shed? Did your dad always have his phone with him when he was on the property at Moselle?
Not all the time.
Did your brother always have the phone on him when he was at the property at Moselle?
Not always on him. He would have it near him, but he's out there working on stuff and didn't always have his phone just in his hand or in his pockets or anything like that.
Did your father ever misplace his phone?
Yes, sir.
Was that a frequent occurrence?
It was.
How about your brother? Did he ever misplace his phone?
He did.
Was that frequent?
It was.
Now, there's been some testimony about Bubba.
Yes, sir.
Who's Bubba?
Bubba was our dog.
What kind of dog was Bubba?
He's a yellow lab.
And was he difficult to control?
He could be, but for the most part, no. He would listen to Dad more than anybody else. But also, we had a gun dog shot collar that we would put on him sometimes, and when he had that on, he was
Okay.
on his P's and Q's.
The switching gears, another topic. When your dad, well, let me just put it like this: how frequently would your dad take a shower or bath?
He could take him a lot, and he, working out there, if he goes outside and sweats a lot, comes back in and takes a shower.
Was that normal routine for him?
It was.
And did he sweat a lot?
Yeah, it's hot out there in the summertime.
Was he a lot bigger then than he is today?
He was.
How big was he?
Probably 6'4", 250, 260.
Right. Alan, excuse me, Buster, were you aware that your dad had a opioid addiction?
A little bit. I knew a little bit about the usage of pills.
What did you know about it?
I knew that either my brother and mom had found them at some point, and then told them like, "Hey, we found these." And I want to say the 2018 around Christmas, he went to a detox facility after Christmas, and that was my knowledge of it. Thought that handled it, and then there were a couple more times after the fact where they would kind of go into this finding pills, all that stuff, and then he did a few kind of like at home, just self detoxed a couple times, and thought once he did that get off of them, but that was kind of my general knowledge about it all.
You thought he had beat it.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And when he was confronted about his pills, what was his attitude?
I don't know for sure because I wasn't there when a lot of the confrontations happened with them finding the pills. But I mean, I've never heard anything, just, apologetic and,
Right.
Sorry, and would usually be his kind of regular, kind of response.
How did your family handle disputes, like disagreements?
Pretty, I mean, like adults, pretty civilly, talked about it, stuff like that. I mean, and it just depends on the dispute too. Like,
Right.
like I was a kid, I get spanked, stuff like that.
Once
It's not really a disagreement. That's just
once you're a teenager and college age,
right.
any reprimand or disputes you've gotten into with your father, was it all civil?
Yeah, definitely civil.
Did your father show patience with you and your brother?
Yes, sir. He would.
Was there ever any violence in the family?
No, sir.
In February of 2019, your brother was in a boating accident. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe, where were you living at the time?
Columbia.
And was he criminally charged eventually?
Yes, sir.
And what type of reaction was there to his involvement in the boating accident and his criminal charges in the community in Hampton?
I would say a negative reaction in the community. The media spike kind of got going after it. There was a lot of articles in the media about, our family and stuff like that.
And to your knowledge, was Paul being threatened or bullied on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, he was definitely being bullied or on social media. Just people sending random messages, and I would talk to him. I know a lot of times he'd be walking down the sidewalk and, a car comes by and they would yell some stuff at him. I knew he would go out, in a bar and, there's somebody that wants to talk about it and, make a scuff about it, whatnot.
Right. The what was your mother's reaction to all the negativity surrounding the boating accident?
It it kind of consumed her. She's big on reading all of it, and when she read the negative stuff, it made her feel upset and whatnot, and it ultimately kind of caused her to distance herself from Hampton. At this time, primarily living at Moselle. She quit going to the grocery stores in Hampton, quit going to the pharmacy, quit going to get food in Hampton, just thought that there was a real, kind of a bad vibe in Hampton. Like she
Right.
felt like people were staring at her and talking about her and stuff.
Where would she do her shopping?
She moved over to Waldoboro and started going over that way.
Right. Were you sued in the boating accident?
Yes, sir.
In response.
With regard to relevance, Your Honor, it's civil litigation about the boating accident has been a big part of the state's case. He's a party to the litigation.
Overrule the objection.
Were you sued?
Yes, sir.
Was your dad sued?
He was.
Was your mother sued?
Her estate became sued.
But before she was murdered, had she been sued?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
Maybe.
And do you know if Paul had been sued?
No, I don't know that he had been sued.
Okay. Well, was your mother anxious about the civil lawsuit?
Yes, sir.
What was her biggest concern?
I would say her biggest concern was reading articles after, Mark Tinsley had made a statement about how much money he was wanting to collect in the civil lawsuits. And I think it was to the tune of like $40 million or something like that. He was trying to get, and that made her anxious.
And what was your reaction to statements like that?
Well, I mean, I knew what he was saying, but I mean, it's not, to me, it just didn't seem, I didn't think, well, I don't have $40 million. So,
Right. And was your dad anxious about the lawsuit, to your knowledge?
he didn't appear to be overly anxious about it.
What took priority, the criminal case against Paul or the civil case?
The criminal case.
Right. And did the family support Paul in the criminal matter?
Yes, sir.
And what do you mean by that?
I mean, that supported him in his criminal case because, amongst the family, none of us thought that he was driving the boat. We thought he'd been.
At the time of the accident?
That's correct.
Okay, that shocks me.
Buster, I want to now talk about the weekends leading up to June the 7th.
Yes, sir.
And we showed the picture of the lake weekend where you were went up to Kiowee with the Proctors and the Brandstetters.
Yes, sir.
And then the following weekend, I believe, was Memorial Day. Were you with your family on Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
And who was present?
A lot of people were present. I was there. My brother was there. My mom, my dad. My brother had some friends staying with us, and those were the people sleeping there. And then people are, in and out throughout the day, throughout the weekend.
I mean, was it a fun family weekend?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was it a normal Memorial Day weekend at Edisto with your family and friends?
That's right.
Okay, I'm gonna show you. No, this is not it. I'm gonna show you Defendant's Exhibit 123, and I want to get you to identify it, Buster. Don't just say what it is.
It's a picture of my mom and my dad and I on a boat.
Is that Memorial Day weekend?
Yes, sir.
John, we moved Defendant's Exhibit 123 in evidence.
Go, Jason.
It's admitted.
Is this the photo, Buster?
Yes, sir.
And then I believe this same weekend there was a birthday party or cookout. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Doug, if you could play Defense Exhibit 61, please. It's in evidence. Let's take a look at that.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, baby.
Your mom make a cake for your dad?
Yes, sir.
And that was a group of friends. When's your dad's birthday? Do you know the exact date? It's not a test. You just say you don't know if you don't.
No, I don't know the exact date.
It's around Memorial Day?
That's right.
Okay.
27th, maybe.
Then the following weekend, there was a baseball tournament in Columbia, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that weekend. What happened there?
That was the weekend. South Carolina was hosting a regional baseball tournament, and me, my mom, my dad, and my girlfriend went to the baseball games.
And where was the game?
Columbia.
And it was a super regional or
Regional.
a regional?
Yes, sir.
And what days that weekend did you go to the game?
Saturday and Sunday.
Did your mom and dad stay in Columbia that weekend?
They did.
Or they stayed on Saturday night?
Yes, sir.
And you, did y'all tailgate with them on Saturday or Sunday?
Yes, sir. We did.
And was it a normal weekend?
It was.
Fun weekend?
Yes, sir.
And that Sunday would have been June the 6th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then on June the 7th, we went through a host of number of telephone calls with you and your dad and mom leading up to 9:08, 9:10 on June 7th. Buster, when did you first find out that your mom and brother were murdered?
My dad called me. I can't remember the exact time, but it was later. And he called me on the phone. He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
What'd you do?
Well, Brooklyn, my girlfriend, was with me, and I think she heard she could hear my conversation kind of over the phone. And so she just started packing stuff, and I kind of just sat there for a minute, and I was in shock. But eventually we got our stuff together and drove down to Moselle.
Do you remember what time you got to Moselle?
It was early in the morning, late in the morning. If we left around 10:30, 11, got there sometime probably around 2:00 in the morning.
And when you got there, did you see your dad?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition was he in? What was his demeanor?
Yeah, his demeanor was, he was destroyed. He was heartbroken. I walked in the door and saw him and gave him a hug and just broken down.
Could he speak?
Not really.
Was he crying?
Yes, sir.
Who else was in the house? Do you remember?
Yeah. My girlfriend Brooklyn and I got there. Out in the driveway, my Uncle Randy and Uncle John were out there. Chris Wilson and Corey Fleming had just gotten there. They had pulled in behind us. And when I walked in, several of the partners were there. Ronnie Crosby was there. Lee Cope was there. Mark Ball was there. Austin Crosby was there. William Barnes. My buddy Nolan was there. And I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but that's
Sure.
what I remember.
And do you remember how long you stayed there?
Stayed there several hours, probably 3 or 4 hours till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
And where did you go?
And then we left Moselle and we went to Alameda.
When you say we, who are you talking about?
My girlfriend, my dad, and my Uncle John.
I know this seems kind of trivial, but what was your dad wearing when you first saw him?
Shorts, t-shirt.
And did you help him pack?
I did, yes, sir.
What did you do to help him pack?
Got his bag and went into the closet, grabbed some t-shirts, grabbed some shorts, grabbed toilet kit, put it in the bag and left.
Why were you doing the packing?
Just trying to help him. He was so upset. We were all upset, but just trying to expedite the process of getting to Alameda.
When you went in to pack your dad, was there a t-shirt laying on the floor?
I couldn't remember.
Did you get shirts from above the, I don't know. Where did you get the t-shirts from?
Got them from the closet, and there's like wooden shelves up on the wall. And I was getting the t-shirts from there.
Were there a lot of t-shirts on the shelf?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether or not one of the t-shirts fell on the floor when you were packing?
I don't know whether one of them fell on the floor or not, but I mean, certainly could have happened.
When you got to Moselle, were you able to get some sleep?
No, sir.
Did you go back to Moselle the next morning?
Yes, sir.
And who went with you?
Me, my girlfriend Brooklyn, and my dad, and maybe John Marvin. I don't know if he was riding with us or already out there separately, but he was somewhere in the mix.
Do you remember roughly what time you got to Moselle?
I mean, I think we got there rather early. You know, nobody really slept, and you know, it was about early in the morning. Sun comes up. Just
Did
go back.
Did you take a shower and Brooklyn take a shower at Alameda, or did you do it over at Moselle?
No, sir. We slept at, well, tried to sleep at Alameda, and then we took everything back with us to Moselle, and we showered there.
You know where your dad took a shower that morning?
Yeah, Moselle.
And when you went back over in the morning, do you know what your dad was wearing? When you were traveling from Alameda back?
No, not
to
specifically, but I know that, you know, I know what I packed, so it could have been any of that. It's just athletic shorts and t-shirts and stuff.
And after you got to Moselle, and I guess just carrying the days forward, were you with your dad? Well, how often were you with your dad once you got back to Moselle on the 8th?
Every day.
For how many days?
For a good while.
Okay, so let's talk about where you stayed on the night of the 8th. You remember?
Night of the 8th would have either stayed back at Alameda, or that's potentially when we made the transition over to John Marvin's hunting lodge.
Well, were you would you say we, or are you including your father?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you drive together?
Yes, sir.
And was he pretty much in your eyesight for the first few days?
Yes, sir.
And so after the 8th, and then you come up on the 9th, a Wednesday, do you know whether you were at Alameda or spending the night at your Uncle John Marvin's place?
Yeah, I think at that point we had switched over to his place over at Greenfield.
Yeah, and you call it Greenfield. That's the name of his hunting
Yes, sir. Just the name of the property overall.
property. And how far is it from Alameda?
To Greenfield,
Yeah,
a couple minutes. I mean, not
close
very.
by. Close
Yeah, right down the road.
by. And then, and do you remember how long you stayed at Greenfield with your dad?
Yeah, I mean, several days. And, you know, I think anywhere from the 9th to the, you know, probably that rest of that week through that weekend.
Yeah, on Thursday, June 10th, what happened?
Grandfather died.
So the family was together and stayed together?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever remember your dad disappearing for any periods of time?
No, sir.
Were you physically close to him most all the time,
Yes, sir.
except when you were sleeping?
That's right.
And I believe the funeral for your mom and brother memorial service was on that Saturday.
Yes, sir.
And then that Sunday was a funeral for your grandfather? I'm
Grandfather.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
And at some point in time, you went to, did you go to Somerville at some point in time?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when you went to Somerville?
Right, beginning of that next week.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit 129 and ask you.
We discussed things we are objecting on the hearsay basis to 129 is.
Yes, sir. I'm not introducing 129 and offering it to the witness to refresh his recollection. That's the next step.
All right.
But it's for ID. Buster, I don't want you to publish that, but I want you to, I want to ask you if that Defendant's Exhibit 129 marked for identification purposes refreshes your recollection as to when you left to go to Somerville.
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury, what is that? What's that document you have in your hand?
It's a text thread between my girlfriend and I.
And does it have, so based on that text communication between you and your girlfriend, it refreshes your recollection. When did you leave to go to Somerville?
June 14th.
And looking through there, refreshing your recollection, how long did you stay in Somerville?
Stayed in Somerville until the 17th.
And then what do you remember doing after you left Somerville?
On the 17th, we left Somerville to go to Lake Kiwi.
And so when you were in Somerville from the 14th to the 17th, who were you staying with?
Staying with my grandparents.
And then you went to Kiwi. Who did you go with?
Went with my dad and I, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, and their children, their children's boyfriends, and that was it.
So you're with your dad from the night of June 7th and through the Kiwi trip. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you remember what you did after the Lake Kiwi trip?
No.
At some point in time, you decide, I've got to go back to Rock Hill.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Remember roughly when that was?
No, I mean, I think it was sometime following all this, but I can't tell you exactly when I went back to work.
When you decided to go back to Rock Hill, you had a job in Charlotte, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any discussions with your father about your personal safety?
Yes, sir.
Did he make any offers to you?
He did.
What offers did he make to you?
He offered me to.
Basis for the objection.
Hearsay, self-serving hearsay.
Offer is not hearsay. It's an offer.
The objection is sustained.
Did you take any security precautions?
No.
Did you want any security protection?
No, sir, I didn't.
Why not?
Well, I didn't want to carry a gun or anything like that, and I also didn't want like a private security detail following me around just for lack of privacy. And at the time, the places that I was staying and the places that I were going, like I was staying at Rock Hill in my girlfriend's house, who has, alarm systems and security cameras and whatnot. And then other than that, I'm staying in hotels, which, I just felt.
Did at some point in time, you and your father announce a reward?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you would have marked as Defendant's Exhibit 126. Ask if you identify this. If you can identify this.
Yeah, yes, sir. This is the reward.
It's a news release about the reward.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we've moved Defendant's Exhibit 126 to the evidence this time.
No objection.
Submitted without objection.
Can you pull it up, Doug? And if you could just pull out the top 2 paragraphs, please, Doug. Oh, it can't. Okay. Did you work on this language with your dad?
Yes, sir.
Can you read to the jury the first 2 paragraphs, please, beginning with Alex and Buster Murdaugh?
Yes, sir. Alec and Buster Murdaugh announced today a reward of $100,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons who brutally murdered Paul and Maggie on June
Okay,
7th, 2021.
This has an expiry date.
I want to thank everyone for the incredible love and support that we have received over the last few weeks. Now is the time to bring justice for Maggie and Paul. Buster and I, along with Maggie's mother, father, and our entire family, ask that anyone with helpful information immediately call the SLED tip line or Crime Stoppers.
Thank you. Now there's a, in the body of this, there's a expiration date on this reward. What's your understanding of the purpose of having an expiration date?
I'm not real sure.
Okay. Well, you see it says to be eligible, the person claiming the reward must submit the tip to SLED or Crime Stoppers by September 31, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What happened in September, early September 2021, Buster?
Talking about the,
Yeah, do you remember your dad
Yes,
going off
sir.
to detox, road shot shooting?
yes,
What
sir.
was that all about?
From that moment that your dad went to the hospital and went to detox,
Berry sauce?
he ever come back home to his property, his clothes, his belongings, to
No,
your
sir.
knowledge?
No, sir.
There's been some questions about whereabouts are Alex's clothes. Can you tell the jury before he went off to detox where his clothes were? How many different locations he had clothes?
So had clothes at Moselle, had clothes at Greenfield, had clothes at probably a few clothes at Almeida, had clothes at Rainey and Christie's house, had clothes a lot of places.
You have clothes down at Chichesi, or
Yep, Chichesi, Okatee.
you have clothes at Edisto?
Yes, sir.
You have clothes in his car?
Yes, sir.
Can't lead the witness.
How many nights after June 7th, to your knowledge, did your dad spend at Moselle?
None.
How many nights after June 7th did you spend at Moselle?
None.
I'm gonna, Doug, you have the Snapchat video? Can you pull that up, please? Of the tree. Your Honor, this is the Snapchat video that's in evidence. I'll get the exhibit number for the record shortly. Buster, you recognize that shirt?
Mischievous.
What kind of shirt is it?
It's like a, short sleeve button down shirt.
Is it a Columbia shirt?
No, it doesn't look like a Columbia shirt.
What color is it?
It's blue.
Did your dad have a foam green Columbia sports shirt?
Maybe.
Okay. Is this it?
No, this is blue.
Did do you know if your dad ever ordered any Vinnie Vine or I don't know? Did he order clothes after your mother and brother's murders?
Maybe he ordered clothes, but he doesn't wear a lot of Vineyard Vines.
Okay. Have you ever seen him buy Vineyard Vine?
No, sir.
And you can take that down, Doug. Sometime in August, did you go with your dad where you played in a golf tournament?
Yes, sir. I went and played in a golf tournament, and he came and wanted to watch us play in it.
And what kind of golf tournament?
It's a golf tournament that a buddy of mine puts on in Somerville every year. It's called the Jasso Invitational. It's just a bunch of guys that are friends come together and play in a golf tournament.
And did you look up the date of that tournament before testifying today?
I did.
And what weekend was that tournament in in 2021?
Yeah, it's the last weekend in August of 2021.
Okay. Do you know if you were in was there a house that Johnny Parker had that your dad kept stuff in?
Yes, sir. There's a small house in between Johnny Parker's house and my Uncle Randy's house. I think Mr. Johnny built it for his mom or mother-in-law or something when she was sick. But yeah, there's a little 2-bedroom house right there.
And did your dad stay there?
He did.
I don't know if we mentioned that as one of the places where there was clothing.
Yeah, that'd be one. That'd be another one.
All right. So there are a lot of places.
Yes, sir.
Were you there? Did you observe your dad talking to Blanca about anything of where you're getting ready to go on the golf trip?
No, sir.
Okay. You were not present.
No, sir. I don't think I was present.
Did you go in any other golfing outings in August with your dad? If you know.
Yes. Earlier August of that year, we played golf down in Hilton Head with the people from the Trial Lawyers Convention.
Okay. Now you've been sitting in this courtroom since day one?
Yes, sir.
Once the trial started?
Every day.
And were you here when a video was played of an interview with your dad on June 10th?
Yes, sir.
And there was a question about whether your dad said, "I did him so bad," or "they did him so bad." Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize your dad's voice?
I do.
If you listen to it, would you be able to tell the jury whether it's I or they?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd like to pull up Exhibit 153, the clip. What'd your dad say?
Said they did him so bad.
Is that the first time you'd heard him say they did him so bad?
No, sir.
When was the first time you heard him say they did him so bad?
First time I heard him say that was the night that I went down to Moselle, the night of June the 7th.
Did he say that more than one time?
He did.
1 second, Your Honor. Let me check to see what I left out. Just very briefly, Buster, you've heard testimony during this trial that your dad was stealing money from clients. Did you
Yes,
know
sir.
anything about that?
No, sir.
And just lastly, roughly how long would it take to clean a dog run down at the kennels? 2 dog runs, for example.
Roughly, I'd say 10 minutes or so.
And what do you have to do?
You got to get the hose, turn the hose on, spray out the dog kennels. You got to, put the bed on top of the wooden box so the bed's not wet.
Now, what are you spraying? Dog manure?
Yeah, spraying, dog poop.
And it spreads out, and you've got to.
That's right. Yeah, you got to spray it, make sure it's all out of there. Spray it to the back.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
We'll take a break now, ladies and gentlemen, for about 15 minutes. Please go to the jury room. Please.
So isn't that interesting? I'm wondering if now that the prosecution is going to get their turn, if things might get zesty or if they're going to be just nice and fluffy with him. I don't know that he is the one that is going to save his dad's butt, because that's his son. And probably, if not involved, my opinion, if he's not involved, he might know something about this. I just don't think he's the guy that's going to save his dad's ass. And if he is, there's something going wrong down there. Unreal. I was very surprised when they brought Buster up. I did not expect that, to be honest with you. I expected him to be a no-show. Like, I thought they would pass on him. But no, they didn't. So let's see what comes next, right? And if there's not a lot of information coming out, like this is basically all rerun, I will probably try and do some updates on my other cases instead of streaming the afternoon. So I'll play that by ear, see where it's going. But if it's repetitive information, I suppose we don't need to go over it. But if they can bring something new to the table, we'll see what we can do. So what do you think about another juror being sick? So now they have 2 alternates left. And the defense is saying that in all probability that they will be done this week. So there is that. I don't know if they're just showboating or if this is the case, but I don't know. They have a lot to fix. It concerns me a little bit that this is being done in an area where everybody knows who they are. In another county, another state, nobody would have a clue who these people are. The only reason we know now is because of what's been going on. So hopefully the jury is able to separate the fact that it's that family and deal with what is seemingly to be fact. It's quite that. Oh my word, I'm just trying to see if I have my notepad, because there is so much, depending on what is brought up. The prosecution still gets to have another kick at the can when the defense is done. So if the defense has not done what they need to do, the prosecution will get another shot to try and tie up some loose ends. I don't know about cousin Eddie. I am very curious about him, I must say. Where are my notes? I've been trying to do some organizing around here, and I've lost everything. Oh my goodness, the Murdaughs. So what do you think? Okay, they're trying to say that he showed up at 10 o'clock at the kennels, and 20 seconds later, he somehow was on the phone with 911 telling them about all different things. You know, he was supposedly taking their pulse and different things. Do you think what they're trying to say he did in those 20 seconds is even possible? I don't know. 20 seconds, it seems like a bit. You can see on that one piece of footage where that truck was parked. So from where the truck is parked, yeah, there's a good chance that he was able to see both of them. But at the same time, I don't know that it would have only taken 20 seconds. You know, we know that Paul was face down and on his hands, actually. So I'm thinking that might have taken a few of those seconds away. His wife, they have not said much about Maggie's positioning right now. All they've mentioned is somewhere on one of the calves that there was a tire mark from like one of the golf carts or one of the quads on her one calf. They matched up, is what the prosecution said. So because they have not said anywhere that she was face down, I'm assuming Paul was the only one in that position. Like I said, 20 seconds? I don't know about that so much. I don't know. And this whole thing about cousin Eddie and that roadside thing, we do know that Alec ended up having to confess that he set that up. But I think he's also not being totally honest as to why that was done. I don't think he was expecting to be unalived. I personally think that, I've got that last name spelt wrong. I personally think that it happened the way it was supposed to happen. I really believe that this was done more for show than anything else. I don't believe that this was done. Oh my word. Let me see if I messed this up. I hope not. I don't think so. Okay, just wanted to double check. So yeah, I honestly think that was to make it look like somebody, I think the impression he wanted to make that his family was being targeted for something. I do believe that's what that was all about. I don't believe for one second that he was trying to be unalived. I don't think I don't see him having that in him. I really, really don't. And let's put it this way. There is no reason that if that first shot didn't work, that cousin Eddie couldn't have made a second shot. Not making a lot of sense. But really, ultimately not the greatest criminal, because he was driving Maggie's vehicle. He took a pocket knife and popped the back tire. And then he took that knife with all the fingerprints from both him and cousin Eddie, and he threw it across the road. No. And listening to him on that 911 call, it didn't pan out for me. And all of these stories have not been well planned. The unaliving of his wife and son, the story doesn't make sense. Nice eagle. Beauty. Beautiful. Beautiful. Fly like an eagle. I can't sing, so I'm not gonna, but I want to. You guys would be deaf. So in my mind, there's a okay, the possibility is there that Paul was unalived because of that court case coming up and all of his financial records were about to be exposed at that point. So I think that there's a good possibility that he had that kind of figured out in his brain, and he did message Paul and ask him to come to Moselle. So I'm not as sure about planning that his wife was going to be there, but he did call her as well to Moselle. So it doesn't look good on him at all. Buster wasn't called to the property. I'm very curious to see what the prosecution's going to bring out, because they, like I said, they were pretty soft on Buster. Wow. What do you guys think? Was all of this pre-planned? Do you think maybe just one of them? Like, I understand in my brain why Maggie, how this could very well be something to do with her, when this comes out, how ashamed she was going to be. We already know that she stopped going and doing anything in that area because she thought people were making fun of her and staring at her and, you know, putting their nose up to her. So how is she going to feel if all of these facts came out that she was unaware of, all these thefts? And, well, hello, my friend. It's good to see you, Shauna. So, yeah, I don't know if that could be a reason behind this happening. He didn't want her to experience more shame due to him. I mean, these are narcissistic thoughts, aren't they? Very much so. He has made so many things about Alec. Everything is about Alec. Another thing is Buster was saying that if they were going to have a longer stay at his grandma, they called her M, that they would park behind the house kind of off into that bush area. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make much sense to me. It doesn't sound like they got a ton of visitors at that house that they were going to take up parking. So, Shauna, this morning, Buster was on the stand, and you didn't really miss much. There was not, the defense didn't do much with him. So you're here at a good time, because now it's the prosecution that is going to be taking a bite out of that pie. And hopefully we can get some information out. Shauna, did you get my messages this morning, friend? So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Buster, I say that a lot, isn't it? It's fascinating to watch how these people maneuver, because it's so foreign. I was watching another case, but this other case had, what are they called? Like the government was paying for his trial lawyers, and that one lawyer, so this is in the Moscow case, that lawyer there is being paid $200 an hour through the government to work with Brian Koberger. These are things I am not understanding. So, is justice a real thing anymore? Is it actually a real thing anymore? If there is anything to do with money or notoriety. It seems like their defense, sadly, is bought. These lawyers want to make a name, in my opinion. In this case, you can guarantee that they're getting paid well for working with Alec. I would love to know the numbers, actually. Wouldn't that be interesting? Because he's got some, for a broke guy, he supposedly has no money now, right? For a broke guy, he sure has a team in front of him, doesn't he? Good to see you, James. I hope you're doing well, friend. So, yeah, I don't think Buster made any points. And if that's what they've got is his only living son, uh-oh. Unreal. I put the birds up for you. The eagles are up for you, James. The sunset or the sunrise this morning was spectacular. Oh my, oh my, oh my, the Murdaugh family. So I wonder if the brothers will take the stand. It'd be interesting to see that one. I can't remember. It's not the John. I think it's Randy Murdaugh that is the other lawyer for that same firm that Alec was working for. Wouldn't it be interesting if they got him on the stand? Now, I would seriously like to see if he would, how would you put this, break the oath to save his brother's butt. He's somebody that might be interesting to have the prosecution bring up. I don't think that there would be any conflict of interest if they've got Buster up there, right? So Shauna and James. Oh, perfect. That makes me smile, James. I can get back to my daft pandas. So I started this stream and it couldn't have been like a half hour maybe in. You can see my coffee cup is like grande. And I spilled it all over my desk, all over my keyboard, my mouse, everything was soaked. Even I had to change my pants. My shirt's still wet at the bottom. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, I had not planned to do this. It was just, I thought, oh, I don't want to miss like the first full day. I want to see if there's any interest. Anything interesting that pops up. So yeah, the daft pandas. So I've said this a couple of times, but I'd be curious, Shauna and James, do you think that Alec will take the stand? Or do you think that he'll just sit there and hope that his family saves his butt? I think, but I don't know. I think he would be smart enough to know that's not a good idea. But at the same time, he could be arrogant enough to think he could save everything. I don't know. Breakthrough, right, Shauna? I can't help it. Those pandas are adorable. If I stream this afternoon, I'll put them up. Like I said earlier, I'm not quite decided if I'm going to stream the afternoon. I'll kind of base it on what we see this next. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So, what's the verdict? Guilty or not guilty still? Oh, I just see guilt. I haven't seen anything that's changed my mind, and I am open, believe it or not. I haven't just decided I'm locked in on him. But all of this information, especially when all of that digital information came at the end of the prosecution's side, all that digital information that came out, I don't know how he can escape that. I don't know. Is he going to say there's flaws? Maybe. Yeah, exactly. I hope he thinks he's such a master manipulator to get up on that stand to turn that jury. I agree. Yep, I'm the same, James. Nothing's come out to show anything different, has there? Buster did not do anything. He did not save his butt. Yep. Yep. He is not doing himself any favors. And like I just said, Buster's not much of a help. But I'm very curious to see what the prosecution's going to do with him. He better buckle up. I mean, maybe they'll be all good, but I have lots of questions, so I'm sure the prosecution does. Wow, what a family. What a family. And I'm sure you guys are all the same as me. Like, if they would bring something to the table that shows, like, even a little bit of possibility that there's somebody else out there, but that's not the way it's going. It's just not looking good, no matter who's on the stand. And a lot of times it's his own lawyers that are like making me shake my head. Like Cheech, oh my word. He gets very aggressive at times, and it's not a good look for an old guy. He needs to mellow out a little bit before he strokes out while he's presenting his case. And like I said, bring something to the table that will change our minds. All we've got is, all we have is what they bring us, right? Let's do this. Day 19.
They bring the jury. Thank you. Cross-examination.
Can I call you Buster?
Yes, sir.
I'm John. And I want to first off tell you, I am sorry about your mother.
Sorry, I can't hear him.
I'm sorry about his mother,
Well, if you step back a little bit, I can hear you.
and I'm sorry about your brother,
Thank you.
and I'm sorry about your grandfather.
Thank you.
He was nice to me when I was a young assistant solicitor. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't have any questions for you, Buster.
Okay.
When you are leaving the main house, you told Mr. Griffin that the main entrance was the brick entrance,
Yes, sir.
but there's also a side entrance or by the kennels or
Yeah.
entrance exit.
Yes, sir. Just a totally different entrance.
And the mailbox was at the side entrance.
Yes, sir.
The kennel entrance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think it's just I really don't know.
Okay. I don't either. But the packages would come to, you said the kennel side?
They would come to the shed.
And a lot of times y'all would use that kennel entrance exit to go, just like you'd use the main one, right?
Yeah, you would. I would say that I'm more so tended to use the main one, the one that I say is the brick pillars. But yeah, I mean, you could certainly leave either way.
If you were leaving the main entrance
Mhm.
and you got down, you're leaving the house and you're going toward the brick. And then you know where it's kind of a Y where it kind of cuts off to the kennel too, right?
Sure.
So you go straight or left. If you were leaving at night going straight, and if you were looking out to the left and the lights were on, you'd be able to see the lights on at the kennel just from that little Y, wouldn't you?
Maybe, depending on what lights were on and whatnot. I mean, if it was fully lit up, maybe.
And just from that Y, instead of going straight, from that distance, you'd be able to, if the lights were on fully, you'd probably be able to see them.
Maybe, yes, sir.
Almeda, where your grandma and granddaddy were, is that close to it's close to the law firm, isn't it?
Almeda,
Yes, sir.
close to the law firm? I wouldn't say so. I mean,
How
anywhere in Hampton is close to anywhere in Hampton because it's not very big.
fair enough.
But I mean, it's a 10 minute, 12-minute drive out to Alameda, I would think, from the law firm.
I think, Mr. Duck, could you bring up 131? Can I ask him to do that? Sure. I know Mr. Harper been exposed. This is Mr. Griffin's witness. So you don't have to get, but you see, is this kind of where you said everybody would park?
It's right. So if you look,
You mind if I come up here?
no, sir, you can. So if you look right off this
You
point,
might want to come down here if you don't mind. Just the jury.
There's a room where you can go.
so if you look right over here, this is kind of what I'm referred to as like the back corner of the house. And it would basically, you would come around, there's a big oak tree here, you come around it, and then you basically pull up, and you would probably stop the hood of your car right in, right off the back corner of the house.
So it'd be closer to here than over here.
Be about right in here.
So right in here.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't want to pull up super close to it. Yeah, be right out.
But there was a driveway paved driveway in here, right?
There is a paved driveway over towards the side of the house.
Okay, and really not many tire tracks. The grass looks good in here.
I don't know when these pictures were taken, but it's a little dead right there.
But there is a driveway, right?
There is a driveway.
Okay, you can have a seat there. Thank you, please. When did you first mention that to anybody about parking in the yard there?
What do you mean?
I mean, like, when did you first discuss that with anybody as far as where cars parked at, your grandma and granddad's house? When was the first time you talked to anybody about that?
Couple days ago.
A couple of days ago? Okay. That's the first time you mentioned that?
Sure.
Okay. And then that would have been, after Shelley testified, right? Shelley Smith?
I guess. I don't really remember when Miss Smith testified.
Miss Smith. Did you bring that to somebody's attention or did somebody ask you about it?
I'm not sure.
And I think you, keep forgetting I'm on cross. You testified that, how many times had you been there with your dad? I wasn't quite clear with your answers to Mr. Griffin. I'm not trying to be difficult, Buster.
I understand. And I can't give you an approximate number, but I mean, I've been out there with him several times.
And, would you always call? You said you called. Did you always call when you got there?
Yeah, I feel like most of the time you would call just to tell, because the ladies get nervous, if you hadn't called and they see a car pulling in the driveway, it's just easier to call and let them know, like, hey, we're going to be pulling around, please unlock the door. We'd like to come in.
Had you ever been over there at 6:30 in the morning?
Have I ever been out there at 6:30 in the morning? Just like overall
I guess.
I've been out there at 6:30 in the morning before going hunting and whatnot.
You called then also then, right?
Well, that was
going into the house.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I would just let them know, especially 6:30 in the morning.
Sure.
Okay. Your mom loved Edisto, didn't she?
Yes, sir, she did.
I love Edisto. She was actually getting some work done down there, wasn't she?
Yes, sir, she was getting some work done on the house.
And on this date, June 7th, literally there were people inside doing work that day, weren't they?
I think so.
Yeah. And her plan was to stay down there that night, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know what her plan was.
You had, I think the last time you've been to Moselle, you said was the spring, maybe a few months prior to this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have to say yes for the court reporter, not for me. just
Yes.
just
Sorry.
And you talked to your mom that day on June 7th?
Yes, sir.
And I think you had talked to Paul the last time on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken, June 5th is what you told in one of the interviews.
Sure.
And Mr. Griffiths to ask you about the financial troubles and that have come out here. You had no knowledge of your dad's financial difficulties at all, did you?
No, sir.
I mean, you really didn't.
No, sir, I really didn't.
And as far as you knew, financially, the family was sound.
Yes, sir.
You went to Wofford.
I did go to Wofford.
Go Terriers for the record.
Thank you.
But everything, as far as you knew, financially was okay. And when did you learn it wasn't?
I guess on September whatever that day in September was.
So back in the birthday, I guess for your dad, Memorial Day down at Edisto.
Sure.
Fence exhibit, and I apologize, I don't know what number it was just played. I believe that Mr. Chris Wilson is hugging your dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's a family friend.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You didn't know then that your dad owed Chris Wilson or stole $192,000 from him, did you?
I did not.
And I'm not saying that to be mean, but you really didn't know that.
That's correct. Didn't know.
And the boating accident that Mr. Griffin asked you about, that was pressure on the family, wasn't it?
I don't know that pressure's the right word. I mean, it's definitely an uneasy feeling. You know, your brother is criminal charged, and then you, myself, and my father have civil charges. I mean, definitely unsettling.
I mean, it caused stress within the family, didn't it?
It was stressful. I wouldn't say within the family, because I mean, you know, we supported each other. And
Sure. And I'm not questioning that, but I mean, your mom felt ostracized.
yes, sir.
She even more so wanted to say that and stuff.
Yes, sir.
It really, I mean, you were a little frustrated with Paul yourself, weren't you?
In
Just
terms
as far
of,
as using your ID and getting all that, and that case is over, okay?
sure.
But I mean, you didn't like it when you used your ID yourself.
Um,
And I'm not trying to go anywhere, Buster, but he'd use your ID sometime and you didn't want him to.
How many questions you gonna ask?
I'm
Questions, comments, what's the question? What's the question?
Did you like it?
Yes, sir.
Did he used your ID, didn't he?
Objection's overruled.
I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
Did Paul use your identification?
Yes,
Did that frustrate you?
sometimes.
Totally different attitude on cross, hey?
You were shown the tree video with the shirt and the pants. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
When you saw your dad on the night of June 7th, what did he have on?
When I had made my way up to the house, he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
And who laundried his clothes?
At that period of time, would have been Blanca, and then my mom also does laundry sometimes.
But on a day-to-day, did Blanca take care of your dad's clothes, laundering, cleaning, folding?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Griffin asked you about, I'm gonna do that. You never went back to Moselle after this incident,
Well, I mean,
or
after
did you?
if you take June 7th on June, I mean, I've been back to Moselle since then, but I've never slept another night at Moselle.
And did your dad? Let's strike that. Big portion don't. Big course indulgence. Did your dad try to get you to go hunting out there again one time or suggest it?
He asked if I wanted to, and if I wanted to, that I could.
Or you didn't want to?
No, sir. Didn't want to go.
That's all I have. Thank you, Buster.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Redirect.
Oh my goodness, what was that?
Buster, if your mother, when she went to Edisto and stayed for multiple nights, would she take Bubba with her?
Yeah, usually she'd take a combination of Bubba and maybe another dog, Grady. She would take dogs with her. Yes.
And you understand, Bubba and Grady were at Moselle the night of June 7th.
I do. Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Anything further? Thank you. Let's step down.
Okay, I expected this to go a little
Next
different.
witness.
My goodness. Is that what you guys expected? I'll mute out.
Put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Go have a seat up there on the witness stand. You can adjust that microphone and pull it closer to you if you need to. Pull your seat up, but state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
Mike Sutton, Sutton.
Mr. Sutton, what do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic engineer.
A forensic engineer. Now, what is a forensic engineer?
Well, the majority of the work that I do involves the investigation of accidents and failures in the field of legal questions, legal problems, court of law. So what forensic engineers do is that they collect data, collect physical evidence, they interpret the data, and then try to come up with what happened in an event, maybe what didn't happen in an event, or maybe try to limit the possibilities of what happened in an event.
Okay, and do you have educational background in this area, or have you been trained, or how about just tell us, first of all, where you, as we say around here, where are you from?
Well, I was born in Hickory, North Carolina. Then I grew up in Cary. When I was young, family moved to Cary, which is right outside of Raleigh. When I graduated from Cary High School, I went to North Carolina State University, and I was in the materials engineering department for about a year. In my sophomore year, I transferred over to mechanical engineering department. And so I was at NC State for my undergraduate from 84 to 88. And when I was a sophomore, I met an engineer. His name's Dr. Charles Manning, who owns a company still in Raleigh. He's passed away, but his company's still there. And Dr. Manning was an ex-professor at State. He's also an ex-NASA engineer. And I worked with him from basically 1987. Then after I graduated, I went full-time with him.
When you graduated with a degree in what?
In mechanical engineering.
Okay,
And
and you were working with him.
working with him, and I continued to work with him. And then I got a master's degree at North Carolina State University, also in mechanical engineering with a concentration in acoustics and vibrations.
In acoustics and vibrations.
Correct.
Your master's, okay.
Yes.
And then what did you do?
Well, I worked with him as a consulting engineer, consulting forensic engineer, looking at all different kinds of accidents and failures, about anything that you can imagine. We do a lot of motor vehicle accidents, of course, because there's so many. We look at structural failures, product failures, material failures, about anything that you can imagine. Basically, if there's anything that's based in physics, it's capable of being explained and understood.
And what do you mean by physics?
Well, physics are the laws that govern how things around us, how they behave. You can predict their behavior. If I drop a basketball off of a balcony, I can predict how long it's going to take to reach the ground based on all the different variables. So the laws of physics are there. It helps us figure out how things would happen. So I worked with Dr. Manning for a while until 2000, end of 2000. And in 2001, I founded my current company, which is based in Cary. It's called Accident Research Specialists.
What's the name of it again?
Accident Research Specialists in Cary,
Okay.
North Carolina. And we do the same thing. There are 10 engineers that I work with and support staff, and we investigate, analyze a variety of cases for a variety of clients. Like I said, most of my work is related to either criminal cases or civil cases, and I do some consulting that's not related to courtroom issues, just straight consulting to companies.
Have you, from time to time, dealt with shooting instant reconstruction?
Yes, I have.
And tell the jury what shooting instant reconstruction is.
Well, the shooting incident reconstruction, at least how I'm involved with it, I deal with what would be called external ballistics and terminal ballistics. So external ballistics are the flight of a bullet after it leaves a gun. A bullet leaving the barrel of a gun, it's going to be affected upon by gravity, air resistance. So that's just physics. And then there's terminal ballistics, which is what happens to a projectile when it strikes a target or an object.
And how many times have you been involved in a case involving shooting instant reconstruction?
I would say over the years, maybe 50.
Okay.
Now, all different kinds. Like, for instance, it could be a case where a manufacturer is being sued for like a drop fire, where somebody dropped a pistol and it went off.
And it's not supposed to do that.
No. And
Okay.
so it could be a products case. I've worked on cases involving hunters, long range distance shots where you're trying to figure out where a particular hunter was aiming the gun. So where he hit, killed somebody. I've worked certainly in law enforcement shootings. I've worked for law enforcement, and I've worked on the side opposite law enforcement for people who have been shot by law enforcement. I've worked on insurance cases. Sometimes there's a question about whether it was a suicide or an accident. So those are the type of cases that I would be involved with.
And when you do these cases, you're looking for, what's the difference between you and a crime scene reconstructionist?
Well, crime scene reconstructionists would be looking at a lot of different things. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I deal with physics. But somebody who works at crime scene may have also a background in, let's say, chemistry. And they may be using different reagents to find blood or gunshot residue. That's not what I do. But I physically reconstruct a site. One of the main things that we do in forensic engineering, such as myself, accident reconstruction is what it is that we have the ability to go and capture data, collect facts from a site, whether it's an accident or a murder or what have you. And then what we do is we interpret what we're finding and try to, again, put ourselves in a position to answer questions about how an event occurred, or maybe limit what could have occurred, or maybe what didn't occur.
Okay, so have you ever been qualified by state or federal court to testify about a shooting incident reconstruction for instance, in Wake County, North Carolina?
Yes.
And what was that? Was that in federal court?
That was in federal court.
And were you allowed to testify as an expert?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me move on to, and I believe the name of that case is Michael Morgan versus Wake County Sheriff's Office, correct?
That is correct.
And that was 2018.
Yes.
Now, you've been involved in many more cases. Have you ever been qualified additionally to that by any federal state court to testify about a shooting incident?
Yes, I have testified in other criminal trials where the questions were just as I said, which is where was the weapon aimed, maybe how many shots were fired, where were the shots fired from, maybe the sequence of shots. Again, this is all, developing an understanding of what the physical evidence tells you.
Okay. So let me move to a second area of expertise I'm going to ask you about. Tell us about what acoustics engineering is.
Well, acoustics and vibrations, or acoustics specifically, is part of mechanical engineering. It's the study of how sound moves, how it's made, how sound may decrease over distance, the effect of sound on people. It's obviously something real important because if you're exposed to sound for long periods of time, you can lose part of your hearing. So it is a subset of mechanical engineering. And so I have testified in cases involving acoustics. My master's paper was in the area of something that I do quite often, which is the audibility of emergency vehicles. Like if a police car has a siren on and you're driving up to an intersection, you got the radio on. Can you hear the siren, or can you not hear the siren? Maybe it makes a difference if your window is up or down. Those types of issues. So the audibility of noise.
To do that kind of analysis, do you have to do some sort of reconstruction oftentimes?
Yes, often with acoustics, you can definitely look at it theoretically, but I typically test it because it's something that is readily testable.
Okay. And you've been qualified again in at least one state. You've been qualified multiple times to testify as to acoustical engineering.
Yes.
And one of those cases was Kudolakis versus CSX in state court in Richmond, Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
And many other times also.
Yes.
Okay. The last area of expertise, all these are engineering related, correct?
They are.
Is accident reconstruction involving vehicles.
Yes.
And you've done that more than you've probably done the other two, correct?
It is motor vehicle accidents, and again, it's just because there's so many of them. Throughout my career of 36 years, I've looked at probably a couple of thousand motor vehicle wrecks.
And again, you apply these same principles, data, and then you do an engineering analysis of it, mathematics, trigonometry, those kinds of things. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you have been qualified multiple times on that issue
yes,
as an expert to give an opinion.
yes,
And again, going back to the other two, you've been qualified as an expert to give an opinion by many courts, several courts in shooting incident reconstruction, acoustics engineering, and in motor vehicle reconstruction. Is that correct?
yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move that this witness be qualified as a expert in the three areas I just mentioned.
Mr. State. He's admitted without objection as an expert in the fields that he's offered.
Okay, so let's start off with the shooting instant reconstruction, okay?
Yes.
Now, have you prepared a PowerPoint? Well, back off. Back off. Strike that. Were you hired by myself and Mr. Griffin to do some analysis on what occurred at Moselle that resulted in the deaths of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh?
Yes.
And let's first of all talk about what's the process generally, and then we're going to put this PowerPoint up, or do you want me to put the PowerPoint up first?
I can speak to that generally.
Go
So
ahead.
I think I mentioned it earlier, but really the first steps in any investigation, if it's a little investigation, big investigation, my job and the people I work with and people in other companies that do what we do, you go collect facts. And in this case, this is typical, facts were collected. The crime scene was processed. There were a lot of pictures taken, things like that by SLED. So that's one place that I can get facts. I typically do, and I did in this case, I go collect facts myself. So I went to Moselle and it had changed. I went there about 18 months after the murders. I went in October of 22, but I was able to measure the Moselle property and look at the physical evidence, what was remaining. And then I was able to use that in conjunction with what SLED had done, because SLED had collected a lot of evidence at the scene that I looked at.
Now, some of the evidence collected by SLED that you looked at were measurements made by SLED agent Worley, either the night of or soon after the incident, to things like shell casings, right?
That is correct.
And there's also pictures of those shell casings, correct?
Yes.
And also the location of Maggie's body and Paul's body. There were measurements done on both of those, correct?
Yes.
And did Agent Worley also find two bullet holes, one in the doghouse, one in the quail pen?
Yes,
And did she take measurements there?
she did.
And were those important to your calculations?
They were. It was what I was looking at least my role in looking at the crime scene or the side of the crime, the questions that I was being asked.
Okay, so do we have the PowerPoint, please? Okay, you can see that. Okay.
Object to showing this, nothing's been entered.
Oh, I apologize. I got ahead of myself. This is a disc of this PowerPoint. Any objection? It's the PowerPoint.
No objection.
Your Honor, we offer into evidence defendant's exhibit number 143. Without objection, I believe.
Submitted.
And Your Honor, okay, let's just walk through the PowerPoint. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, now this is titled Shot Trajectories as Measured by Special Agent Worley. Are these what we're talking about, measurements she made?
Yes.
Okay, next slide, please. Quail pen. Go ahead. Now, what are we looking at here?
So this is what I call the quail pen, and it's a small animal cage. It's been referred to, but like it's a bird cage, and it's up against the building or the barn, the hangar. I think it's been called several things. It's up underneath the roof.
Okay, now if you went perpendicular to that out, would you run into the dog kennels?
Yes.
Okay, so this is across from the dog kennels, and that is the quail pen.
Yes, and this particular photograph was taken the night of the murder. So the first few pictures just show the points of evidence that were of interest to me. And then what happened later on, it was the next month, I believe it was July the 6th. Special Agent Worley went back and actually took some measurements. She used basically a common technique where you try to get more information about these bullet holes.
Okay, next. And what is this we're looking at?
It's a little bit closer view of the quail pen, and what you have there on the side of the quail pen, so it would be the side that's really facing the crime scene.
Right.
It's made out of like a fiber board, a little bit more robust than cardboard. It's like a fiber board, so you can penetrate it easily. And there was a bullet hole basically in the center of it.
Okay, next slide. That would be that bullet hole?
That is the bullet hole, and if you were able to zoom in a little bit and look carefully, you'd be able to see what's called a bullet wipe. It's down. If that was a tiny little clock, it'd be just under 3 o'clock. And so when I looked at that, it looked like the bullet was on an upward trajectory, a small one, but an upward trajectory. And what the bullet wipe is when the bullet comes out of the barrel of the gun, it's going to have products of the bullet being fired. And when it enters sheetrock or a car door or a piece of plywood, you commonly see that lead-in mark where the bullet goes into a piece of material.
Can we make that bigger? There we go. Okay. So how about step down here for just a second, and there's a pointer right behind you. Your Honor, may he step down? Grab that pointer right there. You point out for the jury, please, that you call it a bullet wipe.
Yeah, so when you look at the entry, one of the entrance of a bullet hole into a surface like this is, and this is the piece of gray cardboard. There's some tearing here, but if you look over here on the side, that's what's called the bullet wipe mark. And that shows you the direction that it's coming from. So it's coming from where I'm standing. And it's a little bit below, like if you could draw a straight line through there, that would be even with the horizon. It's a little bit below that. So right away, that told me that this bullet, when it penetrated this piece of material here, that it was traveling upwards and from right to left.
Okay. Let me see the next slide, just in case. Okay. Any way to make that a little bigger? While he's doing that, what are we looking at here?
This is a photograph from Special Agent Worley's trip to the crime scene. I think it was the next month, July the 6th.
And what's going on here?
So this bullet, it penetrates this quail pen and actually goes through the wall of the hangar too. It goes through several layers of material. And a common technique to try to figure out what is the angle of that shot, you take something like this. Typically they're fiberglass, so they don't bend, they're perfectly straight. And you insert that rod through the bullet hole. And then what you do is you measure this rod. So right now she's measuring what's called the vertical angle. So if I was measuring that's the angle of the shot, like to the TV right here. So vertical angle is this way. Was the bullet going up, or was it going down, or was it going straight in?
And what did that, did you look at a close-up picture of that? And did you also look at her notes?
Yes.
And what was her conclusion about the angle? You say vertical angle, the angle going into the quail pen. Was it going up? Was it going down? And by, I guess you gauge this in degrees, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so was it going up or down?
It was going up.
at what degree?
So the bullet was traveling upwards, which is consistent with what I just showed you on previous pictures. So her measurement that it's going up is consistent. She recorded in her notes that that was 3 degrees going up. So pretty flat, but the bullet was traveling upwards. But there are 2 pictures. She has one picture of it at 3 degrees and one at 1.5 degrees. So pretty close, but 2 different trajectories. And later on, I looked at the difference between the 1.5 and the 3.
Okay.
And we could, that'll come up later, but for the purposes of me understanding what was going on here, I considered both 1.5 and 3.
And while 1.5 or 3 is not a steep incline as it goes in, if you project that back, it's going to have, if you go 10 feet, it's going to make, okay. As you project it back, what, if any, difference is there on that cause on trajectory?
Okay, well, the reason this is interesting is because it's an upward traveling bullet. So if you think about the path of this bullet, for all purposes here, because we're talking about maybe 50 feet in this crime scene, it's not 400 yards. If it's 400 yards, the bullet has a curved trajectory. So here, because the area that we're considering is so small, that for all intents and purposes, it's a flat trajectory, which means that the barrel of the gun was on the same angle as that rod, okay? And it's going down, which means if you extend that rod, if you're able to extend that rod some distance, it's going to go into the ground. So if it goes into the ground, obviously the gun can't be underground. So you know that the shooter who fired the weapon that sent the bullet into the quail pen has to be on that line. So the weapon has to be on that line, and it's going to go into the ground at some point. So that is a good piece of information, because that locks the location of the shooter, at least for one shot.
And I believe Agent Worley identified, I'm sorry, strike that. What, if any, caliber or kind of weapon did Agent Worley deduce had fired that bullet?
This was the 300 blackout.
Okay. Now go to the next slide, please.
This is just another measurement. This may be the one that's closer to 1.5 degrees, but you can see this is called, they call them trajectory rods, which again is inserted through the multiple paths of the bullet as it went through things.
So as you look at that device, whatever that's called, one of them shows 1.5, one of them shows 3, and she wrote down 3?
Correct.
Okay. Great. Next, please. Now, what is this?
Same thing. I'm just showing the kind of the different readings that she got here.
Okay.
It was within a range.
Okay.
So same answer for this.
Right. Next. Okay. So what are we looking at now?
Just to explain a little bit better.
Can you make that a little bigger, please? Okay. So what are we looking at here?
This is to show the trajectory rod. It comes in. We've been looking at this side right here. But if you look inside, you see it kind of goes through the cage. It goes through the back of the cage. It actually goes into the hangar or the barn. It goes through the siding and then the plywood.
So that is that same rod, except that's the inside going out. Correct?
That's the inside. I was just trying to show the technique. And this technique is a technique that is used often. There are other ways to do it, and we may talk about it later, but this is a technique that's often used to come up with this line of fire, or the path that bullet took, because if you consider the path of the bullet, you may be able to conclude something from that.
Okay, next.
It's just more of the same. This is the trajectory rod inside the cage or the quail pen.
Okay,
More of the same.
next.
More of the same.
But these are, okay, wait 1 second. So these pictures just depict that rod coming from the outside, going through the quail pen and through the wall behind the quail pen.
That is correct.
And that's, you put that rod through, and then you can make some measurements outside as to trajectory, correct?
That's correct.
Easy for you to say. Next, please. Now, what is that device? What's going on there?
This is called a zero edge protractor. So protractor is going to measure 0 to 180 degrees. So this is Special Agent Worley puts it up against the side of the quail pen and drop a plumb bob down so you can get what's called the azimuth. And the azimuth is just your compass direction. So because if I have the azimuth, and this is about 41 degrees coming in from where I'm standing. So, 45 degrees would be, here, there's 41 degrees, 90 degrees would be straight in. So what that does is it tells you the direction of this line.
So at that point, whether it's going up or down, and whether it's coming from the left or the right.
That's correct.
And as we look at that coil pen, is it coming from over here to the left? Is it coming from the right?
Well, it's coming from over here to the right.
Okay.
And then to determine exactly how you need to go back and kind of look, you have to do it to scale, of course.
Right.
So you have to create a scale diagram, or you do what we typically do, which is we scan.
Okay. So let me see the next one. And is that just a close-up of the measurement, the angle?
Yes. And you can see here that it's 41 degrees.
41 degrees.
And that's what she recorded in her notes.
Okay, next. Now, this is the doghouse. And in a minute, we're going to see a 3D rendition of this so the jury can get a little better idea of where everything is.
Yes.
But let's go ahead and talk about the doghouse next. So tell me what you see there.
So the doghouse had a bullet hole in it. It's pretty low to the ground. It's about 5.5 inches above the ground, 3 inches up from the bottom of the siding on the doghouse. And this bullet hole was going downwards, 14 degrees down. And it had an angle slightly to the left. And so kind of the same way that you can think about the one that was going up, you think about the one that's going down. So if put a trajectory rod in, we'll see that in a second, it's going to be sticking upwards like that. So you can go up that trajectory rod to a point where it makes no sense. Like the shooter would have to be on a ladder, right? So that what that does is it tells you where that shot came from, and it puts a limit on where that shooter could be. Just the same way that the shot trajectory would disappear into the ground makes no sense. Shot trajectory that's up at 10 feet doesn't make any difference either. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Let me see the next slide. Okay, and what is that?
That is the 300 blackout projectile. It went into the doghouse, went into a dog bed, so you're able to dig it out. So you can see that here. So again, these are the night of the murders.
So if it didn't go through the back wall, how does one get a trajectory off of that?
Well, in this particular case, the siding was thick enough where Agent Worley was able to put a dowel rod or a trajectory rod into that hole, unlike the quail pen, which is very thin. So a very thin material is considered thin if the thickness of that material is much less than the length of the bullet right here. So in a thin material, there's some special considerations with thin materials versus thick materials, but the doghouse had siding and wood construction, so it's thicker. So a thick material is going to be more in line with the length of the bullet and even longer. So you can still get the trajectory with reasonable accuracy in this particular case.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now what is that?
This is the same process here at the doghouse where
Can you blow that up for me, please? There you go. So what do we see?
this is the trajectory rod. This is a dial protractor. It just uses gravity to tell you what the angle is.
And what was the angle?
14 degrees down.
It's coming in at a 14 degree. The bullet's coming, there you go. It's coming in, it's coming down into the doghouse at a 14 degree angle.
That's correct.
Okay. Next, please. And what is this?
Zoomed in so you can see. So
Okay.
there's 90 and it's over at about 76 degrees or so. So that makes it.
That's a 14 degree downward path.
Yes.
Next. Now, this is that plumb bob thing and azimuth thing, right?
Azimuth. So if this shows you the compass direction of the shot, where it's coming from. And here it's She measured 7 degrees. She recorded 6 degrees off of there, but it's somewhere there. All you really got to know, it's not straight into the doghouse. It's a little bit of an angle, about 6 or 7 degrees.
Okay, next. And that's just a close-up of the same thing.
Yeah, so there's 90. So the plumb bob would be right here if it was going straight into the doghouse, but it's a little bit to the left.
About six degrees.
6 or 7 degrees.
Okay, next. Now tell me what this is.
So this is Agent Worley's diagram, and it's not to scale. And these are just the lines that I drew in to begin with, before I really did much work in the case. And it's clearly not to scale because, for instance, from the small animal cage, that pole is 24 feet about. And you can see that Maggie's body is, 17 feet long. But it says not to scale, but what that doesn't do for you, it really doesn't tell you, okay, well, we went through all that trouble to measure these. What does it tell you? And what I noticed was this, is that there was 2 shots, and one was into the doghouse, which was facing this way. One was into the quail pen, which is like facing the way of this desk here. That's 2 totally different directions. So the first thing that would be good to do is to draw those lines backwards and see where they cross, right? And where they cross, is there anything of interest there, right? Are there footprints or something? In this case, there was, but not footprints, but that's what you do here. And so the thing you're looking at is let's figure out what this is telling us, which is these 2 lines are going to cross somewhere.
Well, and this is not to scale, so it doesn't tell you much about.
It doesn't really tell us much because they don't cross at the right spot.
Right. But in terms of the relationship of different objects, we see the quail pen, and it looks like it is, again, perpendicular to the dog kennels, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Next. Okay, so this is your reconstruction. Maybe you ought to go ahead and take your, you want to do it from down here or up there?
Oh, I can sit up there.
Well, wait 1 second. Let me see what this does. Next, go ahead.
And this is a AVI file.
This is,
Well, I can explain.
was it a video?
It is a video.
Yeah, go ahead and play it, and then we may play it again. I want you to explain it after they look at it. Go ahead. Okay, stop it right there for me, can you? Stop it right. There you go. So we see the doghouse. The quail point where we just flew by it. Oh, wait a minute, she's starting over again. Okay, go ahead and start. There we go. So as we get right, stop it right. Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. There, stop. Okay. So we see the doghouse. Point it out, please. We see the kennels. How about point those out? And I don't think we can see the quail pen yet, but it's going to be up in there, correct?
Yeah, so the quail pen's against this wall.
Okay. Go ahead and start it back up. And stop it. Okay. Show the jury again where the quail pen is.
Here's the quail pen.
And where's the doghouse?
And the doghouse is right here.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and start it up again. Now, maybe I'll have you explain how you do this. You go ahead and take the stand again, please.
Yes.
Let me see the next slide while he's going up there. Okay, well, you don't need to come down for this, but this is called fly through with no roof. So you've eliminated the roof with the computer to show what it looks like. You get a better sense of perspective. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is this to scale?
It is to scale. It's very accurate. Is kind of the modern way to measure a site. Scanning is used all over now. I mean, from dentist offices, everything, but
We'll talk in just a minute about how you put this together, and the process I think is on here. Okay, how about let that one go? And this is without, you took the roof off of the shed, correct?
I did.
Okay, go ahead. We can see the doghouse. We can see the quail pen. We can see where Maggie's body was, and we can see where Paul's body was, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How about do that one more time? That would be Maggie's body near the doghouse,
Yes.
and that would be Paul's body over here, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, keep going. And why did you do this particular visual? What, does that make it easier to see where everything is relative to each other?
Yes. In the scan, you can just cut the roof off. It just makes things easier to see.
Okay.
The roof was of no importance to me.
Right. Next. Now, tell me what this represents.
Well, this is where I start constructing some lines, and this is just an overall shot looking straight down. Like this is a bird's eye view of the scan, and the dog kennels are in the bottom right, and the hangar, the barn, is kind of in the center top of the picture, and it's just there's nothing really of this particular shot. It just illustrates what you can do. And what I did, for instance, is I drew some white lines in there. Those are measurement bars. One's 25 feet long, one's 50 feet long. But the scan itself, you can measure very accurately anywhere in the scan because this is not a picture. What it is are the points. And there's so many points. There's millions of points. And there's so many points when you put them together, it actually looks like an object, like a three-dimensional object.
So let me ask you this, the state, it's been a month, so we may not all remember, the state had, this is called a FARO. What is this called?
We call them a FARO scan. FARO is the company that builds the scanner. There are other companies like Nikon that make scanners, but a FARO scan is a laser scanner. And what it does is it sends out a laser. And when that laser hits an object, it returns back to the scanner. It gets reflected back. Depending on how much time that takes, it can figure out how far away that object is. And we're talking about a very small point. And then what it does is because the scanner is spinning around this way and a mirror is spinning this way, it knows where that point is in space. And then what it also does to make it look better, it spins the camera around, and then the camera applies more information to all these points. So what you end up with are millions of points. Like if you scan the front yard of this courthouse, you get trees, you get signs, you get people kind of ghosting by as they walk through the scan. So it just picks up everything.
So does law enforcement use FARO?
Yes, they did do a FARO scan. I have seen their fly through like we just showed you, but that's the only thing that I've seen. So they did, and again, it is a common technique people in our field use to measure things because you don't have to take 100 measurements with a tape measure, and it's much more accurate.
And SLED, I believe you just said, did a FARO scan of the same murder site.
They did.
And I think we played it, it's been a month, but I think I played it a month ago.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
At some point in this trial, are you familiar with the fact of whether their FARO scan, SLED's FARO scan was played?
Yes.
Okay. And is their FARO scan as detailed as yours?
I would have to compare them, but it should basically be the same thing. Their scan and our scan should be the same because it's a highly precise instrument. And
Let's go to the next one.
The only difference would be they did it in July.
And you did it in?
October of 22.
Okay, now what is this depict?
So the next thing I wanted to do, other than reconstruct the shot trajectories, like we said before, I wanted to know where the evidence markers were. So what this is, I took Special Agent Worley's measurements. She had measured to a bunch of different things, including the head and feet. of the victims, and then also to those little yellow evidence marker tags. And the evidence markers that I was most interested in were numbers 2 through 7, which would have been the empty cartridge cases from the 300 blackout. But what I did was I created a CAD diagram to scale of Agent Worley's measurements.
Okay, what's a CAD diagram?
It's just computer aided drawing. It's a drawing package. So you can do a scale diagram. Now she did this just, measuring from a pole, a post and whatnot. But we have a technique. When we scanned in 22, obviously these markers were not there, but we had lots of photographs of them. And so there's a methodology that we can use where we can flatten the picture taken the night of the murders, and then we can match that to the scan. So then once you match that photograph to the scan, you can actually place in objects that no longer exist very accurately.
Now, this Pharaoh program, you indicated was used by SLED, is it used by other law enforcement agencies?
Yes.
Very common. It is used by hundreds, thousands of them.
Yes.
And they do the same process that you do?
Yes.
Okay. So once you got this, and what is this? This is can you tell me what this process is?
Yeah. So this is Special Agent Worley's hand measurements.
Put on a computer program.
Put it on a computer program. And because I wanted to put the evidence markers in my scan. And so you have the scan of the Moselle property, but then I can put stuff in there too. I could put a car in there, I could put a body, or I could put these evidence markers. So I used this to check what we did, which we used photographs and the techniques of putting the evidence markers where they belong.
Okay. Next slide, please. What does this depict?
So what this is then I overlaid Agent Worley's drawing, the one that we just looked at, over my scan. And I use that, if you're able to zoom in a little bit, I don't know if it may be a little bit hard for you guys to see, but those circles with the crosses in them are Special Agent Worley's measurements. And then either touching them or inside of them are the evidence markers that got placed by what we call reverse camera projection, which is just a fancy name of, we can take the information from a photograph taken the night of the murders, and we can attach that to our scan. And then if we want to, we can put missing objects in there, which is what we did here.
Okay, go ahead.
And there's an example of it there.
Can you make that a little bigger, please? So what is, yeah, that's perfect right there. What does that show?
It shows the same thing. So we use the reverse camera projection method to get the yellow evidence markers in the scan. And you can see there, Special Agent Worley's measurements are usually right beside it, but you have to remember she was probably stretching a tape measure. So it all makes sense. So it agreed. So what that tells you, you have a high degree of confidence that these markers are in the correct place.
Okay, next. Now, what does this depict?
Well, it's it is a video.
Okay,
If
go
you
ahead and
want
play
to
that
show
video.
the whole screen.
Yeah, we need the whole screen to play the video, please. Okay. What are we seeing here?
So this is fading back and forth between the scan world or the computer world and reality. So you can see there that that's a crime scene photo that was taken the night of the murders. And what that is, it's showing you the comparison between this world that we built to try to understand what was the physical evidence telling us.
Well, picture taken on the night of the murders, is this a complete picture or have you dropped some things out?
No, it's a complete picture. Some items may have been moved by the time this picture was taken. I would have to go back and see it's.
Oh, so this picture was taken by you in October.
Oh, no, this is the night of the murders here.
Okay. Okay, next. Okay, so go ahead. Oil pen shot trajectory. Okay, so tell us what this is.
Okay, so I picked a place in the scan to start laying in those lines. So now we've talked about how we built this up. So let's put the trajectory of the two shots that were measured and see what it tells us. And so I just chose a point. You're looking straight into the side of the doghouse. The sheet in the foreground there would be Maggie's body. And then you can see the evidence markers. There's 3, 4, you can see 5 and 6 over by the sheet.
Right.
12 is something else. I believe it was may have even been bullet fragments, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 there are empty cartridge cases from the bullets that were fired.
Okay, go back out for just a second. There you go. I see somebody standing over here on the right. What is that?
That was probably one of my engineers or somebody I work with who was doing some other task.
Okay.
So when you scan, if you stand still long enough, it'll scan you.
Stand you in. Okay.
Yes.
Next. Now, what are those 2 green lines?
The 2 green lines are the shot trajectories into the quail pen,
And why are there 2?
because one is at 1.5 degrees up and one is at 3 degrees up.
Okay. In this projection, in terms I understand, if you took the dowel that she put through the hole.
Objection sustained.
Sorry, Your Honor, I was just trying to get it in terms I understood. Let me see if we can get to the same place. Tell us what that depicts in terms that I can understand.
Yes, so that is the flight path of the bullet somewhere along that line. And so it's trigonometry. It's not any more complicated than that. I don't know if that's too complicated for you, but it's just trigonometry.
These lines, are they put in there by you manually, or are they computed by the program?
Well, the lines are put in by me on the computer program. And again, they're the 1.5 degrees, 3 degrees. The importance of them is that's where the barrel of the gun has to be perfectly in line with those 2 green lines. But right now, without knowing anything else, you could slide that gun up and down that green line and it could be anywhere, right? So, but you start looking at other pieces of evidence. And so what you would have is, well, what other pieces of evidence we have? I looked at this and I said, well, where does this shot trajectory go? Well, it goes almost right over Maggie's body, very close to it, right close to the feet. That's one thing. The second thing is there is a collection of empty cartridge cases right to the line. So if I'm facing the quail pen, there's a collection of cartridge cases to my right.
And what's your understanding about the ejection of cartridge cases from blackout?
Typically, it should be to the right and to the back somewhat.
Okay.
It depends. But so that was a piece of information, which is that starts to, as I said before, sometimes what you're looking at what you can determine, but maybe you can limit where something happens. So, that is a point of interest. Well, you have a pile of cartridge cases that go right beside the shot trajectories. That's an important point.
Okay, next. Okay, so what are we seeing here?
So that is a shooter that I constructed. And what this is, it's actually a scan of a person. So you can get scans of people. In this particular case, just for the purposes of this trial, I stripped all the textures off this person. So there's no clothing or hair or skin color, anything like that. So it's just more almost like a robotic looking figure. It is holding a .300 blackout weapon, a model of one. And so when I started examining those shot trajectories, a couple things were apparent. One is it would be really hard for anybody to be shooting that shot from the shoulder, because remember, the shot's going up. It's only 4 feet 2 off the ground.
What is the entrance where it goes into
Yeah, the
lane?
entry point. it's only 4'2" off the ground, and it's going up, which means that even if you're a fairly short person, to get that trajectory, you'd have to walk all the way up to the quail pen to get it to work. So what I was seeing here is that the most likely way that that shot was made was from a low position, like shooting low on the hip. So I took this scanned in person with a blackout, and I pushed the gun down about as far as I could push it.
When you say about as far as you could push it, what do you mean by that?
Well, eventually, at some points, you have to have your hand on the trigger and the gun. And so instead of having the person stand straight up too, I just put them in a shooting position. I don't know what the position the shooter was, but this is a thought process. Okay, what is this telling us? So that's what I did here.
And what degree line is that one on?
That's on the 1.5 degree.
Okay, next. And what does this depict?
That's the exact same shooter, except that shooter has its barrel on the 3 degree line.
Okay, but he would be on the other side of Maggie's body and on the other side of the doghouse.
Correct.
Okay, next. Okay, now this has 2 individuals in it. What's the one behind?
So those are the 2. So the shooter,
okay.
The shooter behind is the 1.5 degree. The shooter in front is the 3 degrees. So that kind of gives the range of this person being able to make that shot. And so to me, because of several different factors, it's much more likely that the angle into the quail pen was flatter than 3 degrees, which we talked about before. One of the main reasons is there's no shell casings over behind the doghouse.
So this person up front, what did you just say about shell casings?
There's no shell casings anywhere close to that person.
And I guess, can you demonstrate for us how you're depicting this person's holding a gun? I mean, are they, you say from the hip.
Yes.
What does that mean? How about demonstrate, if that's okay, Your Honor?
So what I would say is that what I did for this purpose is instead of having it here, I put it down here, about as low as I could go.
Okay.
And within like a shooting stance, like a shooting position. You're not aiming, but at least you're not aiming in the traditional sense, but
If you're aiming, it'd be on your shoulder, right?
right. So I stretched that gun down until I could just still keep my hand like I was shooting the gun.
Now, from the shoulder, where generally would they be? You've got, to have that downward shot.
It's really hard to put a shoulder shot on that trajectory just because it's so low. Because even a small person going like this, 4'2", even if you put the barrel on the quail, then it'd be above the hole. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, next slide, please. And so this is without the guy up front because you concluded this is where the person would have been.
Yes, for a person of this height, this is to me because of its proximity or closeness to the empty shell casings.
Okay, next. Now let's look at the doghouse trajectory shot. Next. Okay, now explain that green line.
The green line here is the shot trajectory into the doghouse. And this is the same shooter again. And it looks like he's standing on the sheet there, but all that would tell me if this did occur, then the body was not there.
This was a shot would have come before the body fell to the ground.
That is correct. And so again, you have a shooter low on the hip. That's where that person would have to be to follow that upward line. So the same exact shooter, now that shooter is shooting down, I slid that person on the line until it was shooting down. And what I discovered was it's basically in the exact same spot. Maybe 1 step away, maybe 2 steps away, but
The 2 shots were made from very close to each other.
right. So now what we've done is the 2 shots cross each other at a point, and at that point is right beside where the shell casings were ejected, relatively close to it.
Okay. Now you don't know where Maggie was when these shots were made. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we heard from, I think, one of the state's witnesses that strike that. What, if anything, did we hear from the state's experts about the relative position of Maggie and whoever shot her?
The only thing that I heard is that maybe 2 of the shots were done at less than 3 feet because of the stippling to the skin.
And what about the relative position of the shooter and her prior to that?
Nothing specific or definitive.
Okay. So, let's see the next one. What is that?
This is a shooter, because this shot's going down, this shooter is shooting from the shoulder, which can be done with this shot. And if you're shooting from the shoulder, you got to be further back. So that's just to illustrate, that's the range of possibility, from the shoulder, from the hip.
Or down low, those 2
Right.
we just saw. Is that also consistent with where the shell casings are?
It is, that could be consistent too.
Okay. Next slide, please. Both shots. Go ahead. So what does this depict?
So this is the shooter making both shots. And you'll see, and there's a couple different angles I could show you, but they're really close. And they're in the right location relative to the empty shell casings.
Okay.
So what that says, I'm not saying it's exactly there because there's some variables to it, but I find it interesting that the 2 shot trajectories cross at a point where both shots can be made and they're at the right location relative to those empty shell casings. So in my opinion, when these 2 shots were made, at least these 2 shots, that the shooter was standing right in that area.
Okay, next. And what does this depict?
This is the same thing I just described, except a little bit different angle. So there you may have a shooter taking 2 steps forward, depending on which one was fired first,
Right.
or 2 steps backwards. But, within a generally small area, those shots were fired from.
Okay, next. Is that the same?
That is the same thing. That is, the shooters from the hip. If you have the shooter shooting from the hip, it makes a lot of sense that with a little bit of movement, the shooter can produce both of those shots and have it agree with the evidence that Special Agent Worley collected.
Okay, next. Okay, now we're gonna, don't go to let's get to that in just a minute. Based on your analysis and tell us how you came to conclude the range of heights for the person shooting from those distances. Tell us how that works.
Okay, so we're able to locate the weapon, where the weapon was, and
Now, when you say locate the weapon, what do you mean by that?
locate the weapon on the green line. Okay,
So
so
you say locate the weapon is it the muzzle? Is it
the
what
whole
is it?
barrel,
The whole barrel.
right?
Okay.
Because the bullet starts its path inside the barrel, and when it leaves the barrel, it finds the target.
Okay, so you can slide that barrel up and down the green line?
Correct.
Okay, tell us how you get to a height for the shooter.
So for the purposes of what I've been showing you is that I started putting different height people in the trajectory analysis. And so what I've been showing you is a person that's 5'2".
Versus how tall? The
five-
shooter's how tall?
5'2",
Could be someone a little taller crouching down a little bit?
could be.
5'3", 5'4"?
Yes.
So between 5'2" and 5'4"?
Yeah.
The shooter.
Because what happens if, let's say, if you put a 5'4" person even, or 5'5", 5'6", in kind of that shooting position from the hip, you've got to move them all the way up to the quail pin. And it doesn't make any sense there because there's no shell casings. And it starts to not make any sense. Why would a person stand right in front of the quail pin a few feet away and shoot into it?
And as you slide it back, what happens in terms of and this is all trigonometry? These are angles?
It's just trigonometry. So again, you have 5'2" people. What happens is if I move those people back,
Well, take the quail pen to begin with.
yeah, with the quail pin, if you start to move the shooter, the quail pin back, then you start getting to, less than 5'2" very quickly because that shot is going up. And what you have here is that this is as far back as basically I could justify putting 5'2" shooter. Yeah.
And how'd you come to 5'2"? I mean, what, did you look at any data?
Well, again, these are actual people that were scanned in. And so these are 5'2". What happens is, for instance, if you know, I tried it with a 5'4", I tried it with a 5'9".
And why didn't that work?
Because it puts the person under the shed close to the quail pen. Doesn't make much sense being under there. There are no shell casings there. So in order to get the shooter at the cross of the two shot trajectories near the empty casings, then you've got to lower that shot.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, some measurements. We don't need to look at each one of these, but go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Now, let's hold on for 1 second before we go to that. So in terms of Alec Murdaugh, who is, how tall is he?
6'3", 6'4".
Okay. And you took a measurement of him this morning, correct?
Yes.
And what did you measure?
I measured to his kneecap.
To his kneecap.
Yes.
And how much, what was the distance between the bottom of his foot and his kneecap?
25 inches.
Okay, now explain why that's relevant to what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, the obvious question is, well, what if you were 6'4" and not 5'2"? What does that mean? So what that means is that the shooting hand, the bottom of the shooting hand, for some body to hide.
So his hand would be below his kneecap.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Well, it puts the shooter or whoever fired the weapon, if they were that tall, it puts them in an unrealistic shooting position. It's not an aiming position. It's not a shooting position. It would be something other than a shooting position where you were on your feet. So it would be, again, it would be very difficult. You would have to be bending over and have your shooting hand down at or below your kneecap. And what's important about that to me is that it just makes it very unlikely that a tall person made that shot.
Okay. More likely that it'd be more likely that a person between 5'2" and 5'4" fired those shots, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Can I have, yeah. Maybe. Can I have a red or black pen or something? You know. Oh, I think I'll take the red one. Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's great. Thanks. So I had one of these, the shots you had with the shooters and their alignment blown out. Can you step down here, please? And then the point. And let's see how we can do this. You stand over here. And so explain to the jury why they've got to be 5'2". This is blown up. Why would it be 5'2"? I mean, how, if this guy moves forward this way, or either one of them move forward, what happens to the barrel of the gun?
Yeah, so what happens is if you move them forward, they can be taller up until a point where we talked about before. At some point in time, even shooting from the hip, you still have to be very close to the quail pin. If I move them back, either two things have to happen is they have to be even shorter than 5'2", or they have to be in some unnatural or kind of like an unreasonable shooting position. I mean, obviously you could have somebody laying on the ground taking a shot. They could be really low. of any height, right? So, but what I'm doing here is that as you move these people back, the gun has to be lower and lower and lower to the ground. When you move it forward, the gun has to be higher. So then you start looking at, well, where are the shell casings? The shell casings are here. So if you move a person back, let's say where they're laying on the ground, right? And they're shooting like in a sniper position, like on their elbows and laying down flat, there's no shell casings back there because the shell casings are being ejected to the right, maybe to the back, we don't really know. But at least it's going to be back here. This area where Maggie's body was found, where the collection of empty shell casings are found, because some of these were close range, but some of them are spread over here, is going to put the shooter here, what certainly puts the weapon there. And then what you have to do is go through the thought process of how can somebody hold the weapon that height off the ground?
Okay, now if you've got a tall person and they're coming this way towards the quail pen, let's say a 6'3", 6'4" person, can they, how close would they have to be to the quail pen to shoot the bullet at that angle into the quail pen?
Well, it would be difficult. It wouldn't be either a hip shot or a shoulder shot. You would have to, for somebody who's tall, because again, I have a tape measure, but the hole in the quail pen is at 4'2". Okay. So.
We got one right there.
So let's just say, let's see a sticker or something.
You need what, a sticker?
So quail pen shot is right here.
How about I put a sticker right there? Okay, so that's the height it went into the quail pen.
Right. Okay. So I'm 5'10".
Right.
Shoes on maybe 5'11", right? So it's going 3 degrees up. So I'm saying that's about flat. Let's just say that's 3 degrees. And I'm standing at the quail pen. I would have to do like that, or I could do this, right? Not from the hip. I'd have to come in here like this, which of course is possible, right? Just like that.
What about 6'4"?
And if you're 6'4", it would be, a lot taller than I am. And so you would have to go through that thought process of how the shooter could
And of course, as you come back off the quail pen, the only place you see shell casings are back here.
Yes, the empty shell casings, there's some right by the body, there's one underneath the body. And then I believe it's 2, 3, and 4 are here, 5, 6, and 7 are here, but 2, 3, and 4 are here. Like the shells are being ejected to the right and maybe slightly backwards.
And so can you say to a degree of engineering certainty, more probably than not, that whoever shot this shot or these shots, well, first of all, the quail pen shot was 5'2" to 5'4"?
That is the most likely explanation, yes.
Okay. And we know that Alec is 6'4".
Yes.
So could you say to a degree of engineering certainty, more probably than not, that Alec Murdaugh on the night of June 7th did not fire that shot into the quail pen?
In my opinion, it's very unlikely that he fired that shot.
Okay, now, in reviewing the SWED file, did you see whether or not they did any analysis like this? Have you seen any charts, any barrows, anything indicating that SWED ever looked at these shot angles before?
No.
Okay, go ahead and take it up. Your Honor, this is probably going to go probably another hour before I'm done. I just look at it to see it's 1 o'clock. I don't know what you want me to continue, or do you want to take a lunch break?
Well, we can break for lunch now. That's what you want to do. Ladies and gentlemen, we will addressing the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break now and return at 2:15. Please do not discuss the case.
Okay, guys. Well, let me see. Am I in? I'm in. Yeah, it's gonna be chilly. But you know what? It is so beautiful. I don't leave the house. I'm not one for skiing and never have been. But to look at it with all the trees and yeah, it's really pretty. I'll try and get some pictures and put it in Discord. So guys, what did he say? 2:15. So that's me. I'll talk to you guys over in Discord, the ones that are, and see what you guys think. I really think I want to update some more of the cases that are out there. I'll kind of scan and see if there's anything that I want to touch on this afternoon. And if not, I'll do this. But this has been pretty much repeat, right? Now, is there a possibility that the prosecution's going to go up there and like demolish everything that this guy is saying? There's a possibility, but I'll think about it. I'll either set something, that sounds horrible. I'll either set something or I won't. So you'll see one or the other. So thanks very much, guys, for hanging out with me. This is dry, I have to admit, but at the same time, I don't know. We're kind of looking, we can get a view of what like that defense is thinking, I guess. I don't know. So I'm going to say bye for now. I appreciate you tons, and I will absolutely see you in the next one. Bye.